I would like to call the meeting to order. Do we have any special intentions, anyone?
Yeah.
Thomas? Lynn, you have any, you have a special intent? Dominic, you have a special intent? Keith, you have a special?
Yes. I recently heard about the deaths of two ladies from the city of Kenner. One of those was Wayne Thomas's mother, who recently died, and I know he had been involved in the city of Kenner and had worked here a long time, and had worked also with East Jefferson Hospital for a long time. The other one was Aaron Broussard's mother, who died. What was amazing is the age of these ladies. One was 94, and one was 106 months. So it's absolutely amazing, and we should all remember to keep them in our prayers, that everyone could be that lucky. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Wilmot?
Thank you, Mr. President. I kindly ask that you keep in your prayers the following persons, all of whom are fighting cancer at this time. Former Speaker of the House, Joe Salter. Former State Attorney General, Richard Ayub. Senator Gerald Boudreaux's daughter, Brittany. Senator Francis Thompson's brother, Dave. Of course, Representative Julie Stokes. Senator Gerald Long's wife, Rose, lost her battle with the dreaded disease. Please keep Senator Long in your prayers as he deals with the loss of his lifelong companion and wife. And I thank you all for keeping them in your prayers and thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Segura?
Thank you. This is not any local people, but is part of the national event that just took place in Las Vegas, the unsenseless killing of 59 people and hundreds of people injured. That could just as easily have been here at our festival. So we want to keep all of those victims and their families in our prayers and be certainly very diligent in preparing for any type of public event, because these things have now become somewhat of, can happen anywhere at any time. And it's just a hard thing to accept and believe that that's how we have to deal with things today. So for all of those victims, dearly have my prayers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Mayor Zahn?
Thank you. We have a Lafayette Police Department Corporal Michael Paul Middlebrook. He is the brother-in-law of one of our Kenner Fire Department's captains, Michael Lovett. He was actually killed in the line of duty in Lafayette. We need to keep him in our prayers.
Thank you, Mayor. And just to say a few more words after Councilman Segura about the 58 people who were senselessly murdered a couple of days ago. We want to obviously keep them in our prayers. If after we all saw the incident, we immediately wanted to do something, but we couldn't do anything at that time other than to pray for them. But I like to also think that the people who are trained to do this, the policemen, the firemen, the EMS, that they did their job. You know, if you ask any one of them, they would not think they did anything special. They are trained to do that. But what I was encouraged by was the number of people, just regular citizens, who took it active force, because you never know how you're going to react when something happened, but to literally see people cover other people, to see people drag people out of the way. For us as a country and as a nation, there is a lot of division going on between sexes, between races, and a number of things. But at the end of the day, we are one people, we are one country. And to be able to see that, to see people act accordingly, to protect one another is something that will always make America what it is today. So thank all of those people that participated, some even who gave their lives to it. And we ask them for our prayers. Councilman Reno.
Let us bow our heads and remember that we are in the presence of the Lord. Father, for the strength that you have given us, we thank you. For the health you have blessed us with, we thank you. For the women who are going through breast cancer treatment and their families, we ask that you strengthen them and to heal them as you see fit. Lord, we know you want us to be in good health and to prosper. Use us to do the work you have for us to do, for we know time is getting short on this earth. Lord, be with every woman who is sick with cancer and encourage them as only you can. We know how faithful you are. You have shown yourself to be everything you say you are in your holy word. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. I see we have a couple of the fire department's employees. Could you come, gentlemen, lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? We'd appreciate that. You can come up to the mic.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, guys.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum this evening. In accordance with Council Resolution Number B 14550, please be advised that all cellular telephones, pagers, beepers, and other devices of this nature must be deactivated or silenced throughout the council meeting. Under the consent agenda this evening, we have item 1, approval of minutes, the regular council meeting of September 21st, 2017. Item 2 is approval of alcoholic beverage permit applications. We have none. Item 3 is approval of bingo and public gathering applications. Item 3A is application number 2047-17, David Ferraro, to hold a public gathering on October 21st, 2017, from 4:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. for the purpose of a block party at 952 Tavel Drive in Kenner, Louisiana. Item 3B is application number 2048-17, Budwin Placide, to hold a public gathering on November 11th, 2017, from noon to 11 p.m. for the purpose of a block party at 3125 Jasper Street
Madam Clerk.
in Kenner, Louisiana.
I would like to change that to 10 o'clock. I mean, if I'm able to, the time on it, from 11 to 10.
No problem. We'll take care of it for you, sir.
Thank you.
Item 3B is application number 2049-17, Christine Brennan, to hold a public gathering on March 21st, 2018, from noon to 5 p.m. for the purpose of a family reunion at Veterans Park in Kenner, Louisiana. Item 3D is application number 2050-17, America Needs Fatima, to hold a public gathering on October 14th, 2017, from noon to 2 p.m. for the purpose of a rosary prayer rally in the 300 block of Short Street in Kenner, Louisiana. Item 3E is application number 2051-17, Shirley Adams, to hold a public gathering on October 14th, 2017, from 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. for the purpose of a Pray the Rosary at the Kenner Pavilion in Kenner, Louisiana. Item 3F is application number 2052-17, Cotton Bayou residents, to hold a public gathering on October 31st, 2017, from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. for the purpose of a block party on Cotton Bayou Lane in Kenner, Louisiana. Item 3G is a resolution approving the application of Divine Mercy Catholic Church to conduct charitable games of pull tabs and raffle on October 13th, 14th, and 15th of 2017 at 4337 Salentini Parkway in Kenner, Louisiana. Item 4 is correspondence, reports from the mayor, CAO, or department heads. Item 4A, at the request of the administration, a report from Mayor Zahn.
Mayor Zahn, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Council President. Today, myself and Councilman Impastada attended the Chamber Conference of Mayors. There was 4 of us that were supposed to be there. Unfortunately, the mayor of Grand Isle obviously is building levees right now in preparation for the storm. But myself, Belinda Constant from Gretna, and also Mayor Tim Kerner attended. It was extremely informative. It was a good panel. Jerry Bologna of JEDCO was actually the moderator. Hosted by the chamber, though, Mr. Todd Murphy was there. But questions on what we're doing as cities, what we're doing for Jefferson Parish as a whole, which is important for Jefferson Parish collectively. It was really, really good. I appreciate what they did. They look like they recorded it, so hopefully it's going to be televised in some type of format, because it shows how we can all work together and have some unity with our fellow municipalities. Harahan was not able to make it, nor was West Wego to the meeting, but it was good. It was still informative. So hopefully it'll be televised. If not, we'll get some kind of clip so that y'all can see what actually happened and as we work with our fellow municipalities. Speaking of working together, when I came to you all, top priority was to make sure that we got some things for the fire department that had been long neglected by the administration of the fire department, not the administration here, but the administration of the fire department. Working together with you all, and I appreciate what you all did, y'all saw the need for bunker gear that was needed by the fire department, the Kenner Fire Department. Their bunker gear was 9 years old, or is 9 years old. It has a 6-year life expectancy, basically. It's good for 6 years. I've asked tonight, and it's finally come in, so I've asked tonight for our new fire chief, Chief Bergeron, to come up here with 2 other firemen, and just to show you the example of what these men were using compared to what they have now, and let him give a brief explanation of why we needed this. Again, though, like I started off, working with the other municipalities, working with this council, of course, working with our police chief, and in this case, our new fire chief, we were able to pull this off and get this done. So I thank you all for y'all's support and seeing the need for that. Chief Bergeron?
Thank you, Mayor. The 2 coats that you're going to see that is a current captain's that within the service right now. That coat's 9 years old. That's his in-service coat. That's what he goes to work with every day. That's what he goes into burning buildings with. The other coat that's what we just purchased. We're in the process of fitting the entire department out with that. As you can see, we're in dire need of equipment. We work really close with the Kenner Firefighters Association, along with myself, with the administration, and they heard our need. So I'd like to thank them and thank the council for approving the funds. As you can see, we were in dire need of this gear. I don't know if you have any questions.
I'd just like to say that the biggest thing that I notice is the striping on the arm, the ability to be able to see you if you're in a building, dark, smoke and everything, as opposed to the old jacket, there is no signage on it to be able to see you. That one does have the reflection, does have the green iridescent writing striping on it. So that alone, to me, is something that you should never be without.
Correct. The striping, if you look at it closely, the stitching, so it's the material over time, it begins to break down, and that's how you start getting into life expectancy. So the striping is one part, and then also the stitching, and Brian, if you can turn the coat around, the top part, that actually falls down. That's the part that actually protects the fireman within the fire. Once that all starts to break down, that's when you start looking into major safety issues.
Yes, and even being on the highway, we've heard this past year incidents where firemen have been hit by vehicles coming by. I'm not sure all of the circumstances, but you want to be able to have, to be able to be seen when you out protecting the community. So I appreciate that. Ms. Fauché, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman, President, Chairman. I can't remember what we call you, the grand poobah of all councilmen. Chief Bergeron, could you let us know, too, the extent of the gear? Because these are just the coats. What is a full set of bunker gear? What does it include?
From top to bottom, you're going to have a helmet. You'll have your coat, pants, gloves, and boots.
Okay.
And that's what's being purchased right now. It's from top to bottom. All of our gear is 9 years old and needed to be updated severely. So we're purchasing from top to bottom.
And can you explain to the council what the concept of tagged out means?
Tagged out, like failed?
Yes, sir.
So last year, or the year before, we started sending our gear to annually be tested. And so once the gear goes to a professional company, it gets cleaned and it gets tested to see how durable it is. Right now, we're at 100% fail rate as far as testing. And what the manufacturer's recommendation is, it would be cheaper, the cost would be cheaper to purchase new gear than to repair, as you can see what we currently have. So it made a lot more sense to purchase new gear than to repair what we currently have. Plus, we only have 1 more year of shelf life on it anyway.
And with a 100% fail rate, does that mean we were sending firemen into fires with gear that was not going to protect them?
Yes, ma'am.
And upon looking at the budget, once you've taken a look at the budget, was there sufficient funding provided in the budget? We requested what we were told by the chief would be required. Was sufficient funding actually provided for all of that gear?
No.
What was missing?
Helmets, the goggles that go on the helmets, along with the gloves, and the type of helmet we picked. So, yeah, so it'd be helmet, goggles, and gloves was missing.
And can you let the council know what you did to save funds on that so you could provide a complete set for all of your men?
What's that? I'm
Can
sorry.
you explain the process you went through to make sure that all of your men could actually have a full set of gear?
We had to go back and look at what was allocated, that $254,000 that was allocated, I think it was previous meeting or 2 meetings ago, and then had to sit down with the vendor and figure out how we could reduce costs first to see, and then find a difference to get the helmets and the gloves all together. So that's what the additional funds were requested for.
Okay. So, council members, the purpose of this exercise first is to let you know how important it is what you did for these guys. You have made our firemen safe so that they can go into these burning buildings while the rest of us run out of burning buildings and help save our citizens. In addition, I'll be coming forward with a request for additional funding for the bunker gear because the amount that I asked you for when I was wearing my yes, yes, yes t-shirt during the budget hearings, yes. You agreed, but I did not give you the accurate amount. The reason I did not give you the accurate amount is because I did not have the accurate amount. I was providing the information to you that I was provided by the former chief. We have done everything we can with prior fire committed funds for projects that were not complete or are complete and there were funds left over. We are still going to be $7,000 short. But out of all of those things, with the cooperation of the council, the great work of the finance department, digging quarters out of seat cushions, and the fire chief and his men going through the gear to come up with the most cost-efficient but still safe method, we are only 7,000 short. We started off 40,000 short or some number like that. So I think it's been a collaborative effort, and I just want to say thank you very much for what you guys have done to allow these people to have this new gear.
Thank you, Ms. Foshee. Thank you. Councilman Wilmot, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to say as well, first off, I thank the firefighters for doing all that they do. It's a profession that's dangerous, and it's what we need to have. You have to have it in place. You have to have the right equipment. Very important. And showing what you're showing right now, it lets us know that we are doing the right thing. Having outdated equipment we can't have that. We just cannot have that in our city. The old jacket, if you look at it, it looks like it's worn to way beyond capacity. The newer jacket, it looks like it's even a lighter weight, if I'm not mistaken. It's probably made with better materials. So I think you have to have that protection when these folks are going into blazing buildings and so forth. It's critical. It's critical. We need to protect our firefighters. And am I correct, Chief, as far as these jackets are concerned? The newer jackets, it's made from probably a different, lighter material?
As time goes on, technology gets better, so yes. The black, they call it black gold is what it's called. Yeah, it's a lighter material. It actually protects better than, it's actually the same company, it's the same brand, but like anything else, 9 years, you're gonna get better material, your technology improves, so.
Makes sense. And as far as that material is concerned, it looks like it's, like you say, it's lighter, it's going to be more comfortable to wear, and it's going to protect you better. So it's a win-win all around. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Reno, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Chief, what is one complete set cost with the helmet, with the gloves, with the everything, the complete set? Do you have an idea?
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but probably around 3,000 per set, top to bottom, helmet to boot.
And how many sets did you buy?
We're gonna look probably 98.
And that covers everybody in the department?
Correct. Plus surplus. We'll
Right.
have surplus for cleanings and gear, failed gear, things like that.
Thank you. And Ms. Foshee, what are you short on this?
I'm short $7,765.
And have we found the funds to do that?
We found, and I'm giving you the rough number, it was about 40,000, 30-something we were short. We found everything but 7,765, so that's all I'm short at this point.
Okay. I don't know how my other council members feel about this, but I have no problem putting up 1/7 as 7 council members of that money out of district funds, which I would hope that the rest of them would be willing to do the same, and I think they would.
Yes.
So,
That would be just short of $1,100 each. Y'all can do that? That'd be awesome.
and thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilman Segura, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you. First thing, Chief, certainly want to thank you in the short time that you've been the chief to bring this to the forefront, to get it corrected. It's a shame that it should have taken 9 years for bunker gear to be 3 years out of date to not be corrected. So definitely a pat on the back for you for the time you've been there to get this and get it done right. And Councilman Reyno, yeah, you took part of what I was going to do, but can we do that from our funds? Because I'm more than willing to put up that also.
This is capital, so yes, sir.
Okay, great. Well, then I'm in for my share or any others that's needed. But Chief, keep up the good work. You've just been there a short time. I know from my time dealing with the previous administration in that department, there's more work to be done, and I'm encouraged that you are moving in the right direction, and I look forward to seeing more changes in that department.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman DeFrances, you have the floor.
Thank you. And absolutely, even a little bit more if we have to make it work, because it's that imperative to me. I was at the
We'll keep
fire.
that, we'll keep that request for the future for other stuff. Because there'll be more will come to you,
careful.
because we were going to eventually come to you all and ask for that balance, so we appreciate that. But there is more stuff we will come to y'all
I know.
for, because there's a few other.
Fortunately, I don't have that much, but
Thank
anyway.
you. Thank you, Councilwoman.
I do want to say, I was out at the fire in Arkansas, again, the most recent fire, and our men put their heart into what they do. I was so impressed, seeing how they carried, like I said, went that extra mile to help that family and even cared for their animals. I mean, there aren't too many places where you see that kind of heart. And for them to go into a building and not have the equipment they need and to be as safe as they can be, that's not acceptable. And I think everyone here agrees. And so I think we all, I can speak for myself, but I think everybody agrees. We want to do whatever it takes to make sure that our firefighters are well protected and that their lives are not in jeopardy when they go into a building and do their job that other people would run away and not even attempt to run towards. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chief, I just have a couple of questions. The first is, does the lack of sufficient uniforms affect the rating for as we as citizens pay for our home insurance?
No, this is strictly for safety for firefighters.
Okay, and the second question is, as it relates to the volunteer fire departments, have you taken a look at their uniforms? Are they part of this purchase?
No, the volunteers are a separate organization from the Kenner Fire Department, so I have no knowledge.
Who would be responsible to look at their gear to ensure that they have adequate equipment?
Their volunteer chief.
Okay, then I think we should, if you can reach out to him and say that, to ask him to look at their gear just to make sure, since we're looking at this, we may as well look at it totally to make sure that they too, because they support, also, would appreciate that.
Okay.
Yes.
You saying that the volunteers purchase their own gear?
Yeah, the Kenner Fire Department and the Kenner Volunteer Company, they're two separate entities.
Yes, I got that.
So yes, they have their own funding, and then we have, so it's two totally separate things.
No, I agree. But just out of practice, anybody in the volunteer, they got to get their own gear at their expense or the volunteer's expense, or is?
I would assume that the volunteers provide their own gear. I'm not really familiar with their practices.
And the reason I'm going, it seems like somewhere I've heard some pass down of equipment took place, and that's why I was wondering, is their equipment passed down or purchased by themselves? That's what I was just trying to get to.
I can't answer. I
Right.
don't know.
So Chief, we don't know, and thank you, Councilman. That is something we need to find out because obviously we are as supportive to the paid fire department. We want to be as supportive to the volunteer. So if you can reach out to the chief, ask him to answer these questions we brought up today, and to do an assessment of his gear, we would appreciate if he would come back next week to explain to us some of the questions that we can't answer today. Would also, and to work with the administration to address some of the shortfalls.
That's no problem.
Thank you, Chief.
Welcome.
Ms. Fauché, you have the floor again.
In the council's budget, every year, we provide $35,000 of funding to the volunteer fire department, and they also have, obviously their own fundraisers. I just spoke with Jimmy Dennis, who amongst other things is an actual Kenner Volunteer Fire Department fireman, and says that that department does provide for their own equipment using the money that we provide and the funds that they raise. They also have slightly different mission when the role that they play in support of our fire department is not the same as what our fire department does. They provide a different type of support service for us. So we're not necessarily sending them in that equipment into burning buildings. They are providing support services.
So you're saying that they don't go into a burning building?
They're not providing that service. Is that correct, Chief?
Correct.
Okay, but they do provide sort of support services for
Correct.
us. And they're also a fundraising arm to get the word out about the fire department functions. We can get you more information before the next meeting about how that works.
I would appreciate that
Okay, we'll
for
do.
the next meeting.
Yeah, because if I can recruit, my concern is, are they trained to the same level, or is it just trained to a lower level so as not to be needed to go in?
I don't know what their current training is. I think each individual, the minimum standard to be a firefighter in the state of Louisiana is a firefighter 1 certificate. We're Kenner Fire Department is much higher. We rate ourselves higher. I don't know if they exceed the firefighter 1 cert and go above. I'm not sure.
All right, well, then that just still begs to add to this question. They are just like a reserve officer on the police department, they typically should be able to do the same thing.
We'll have more information for you before the next meeting.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Councilman Klein, you have the floor, sir.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. Chief Bergeron, I know you're new at your position, but you're doing a great job. Keep up the good work, and I think we all on the council support you, so certainly I'll be providing my part of the $7,700+ dollars.
Thank you. I
Thank you.
appreciate that.
Thank you, Councilman. There's no more questions, Chief. Thank you a lot, man. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, that will conclude your consent agenda, please.
Motion by Councilman Wilmot, second by Councilwoman DeFranchis to accept the consent agenda. Council, please vote. Aye.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Under the public appearance agenda tonight, we have item 9, public hearings for final passage. Item 9A is a public hearing regarding resolution number B16811, a resolution calling a public hearing on September 7, 2017, to determine whether the structures located at 2309 Kenner Avenue in Kenner, Louisiana shall be abated by repair, rehabilitation, demolition, or removal. Mr. Chairman, we've received a request tonight. The Code Enforcement Department would like a 2-meeting deferral.
Motion by Councilman Carroll, second by Councilman Segura for a 2-meeting deferral. Council, please vote.
Aye. Aye.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 9B is a public hearing regarding resolution number B16812, a resolution calling a public hearing on October 5th, 2017, to determine whether the structures located at 317 Clay Street in Kenner, Louisiana shall be abated by repair, rehabilitation, demolition, or removal.
Is there a presentation?
Yes, sir. If we could open our public
Okay.
hearing.
Motion by Councilman Carroll, second by Councilman Reno to open up the public hearing. Aye.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0 to open your hearing. You're now in a hearing.
Yes, sir. Once we finish this portion, then you'll be allowed.
Yes, sir. Mr. Walters, you have the floor.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, we're going to be showing you pictures of a home, single-story, single-family, elevated house bearing the municipal address of 317 Clay Street. The property is owned by Ira Smith, Charles Smith Jr., and Rachel Stevenson. On May 18, 2016, it was determined that the property located here was unsafe and dangerous under the building codes for the city of Kenner, as well as Section 5-57 et al. Of the Code of Ordinance for the City of Kenner. On July 21st, 2017, notice was sent certified mail to the property owners advising them that the property and building of their violations. Notice was sent to the property owner at the above referenced address as well as addresses found via search engines. City of Kenner also contacted the service of an engineer, and it is noted by the report of the engineer retained by the City of Kenner who provide the following reasons of inadequate maintenance, dilapidation, and abandonment. Windows and doors are boarded up, electricity disconnected, sections of the asphalt shingles are missing at the front of the structure, dangerous sections of the soffit and roof decking show evidence of water damage and rot. Portions of the exterior siding had fallen off throughout the entire exterior of the structure, exposing frame members to the elements. Based on the report of the engineer, the structure is a serious public hazard, and we recommend that the city take the steps necessary to declare it a public nuisance and have it abated by demolition.
Thank you.
Also like to add that this same structure was brought here before y'all in July of '08. At that time, the property owners agreed that they would try to repair it and did not. And that y'all passed a resolution, and probably none of the councilmen, except maybe Miss Maria, was on the council when this was brought before y'all, that it passed a resolution that be repaired. So here it is.
Thank you, Mr. Waters. Yes, sir. Can you come up to the mic, sir? You can come to the one in the middle. Yes, ma'am. You too. Your name and address, sir.
My name is Ira Smith. I stay in Franklin, Louisiana. I was in the process of getting the house down. I had talked to Mr. What's your name again?
Walter.
Mr. Walter about it. At the time, the guy who I had to come tear the house down, he didn't come through for me, so he fell through. And I had been, just now got another guy to come tear it down for me. I didn't have the money at the time to do it the first time, but the guy did it, he was gonna do it on a contract that I just pay him in time. The second guy I got now, so I had to trade my truck and stuff for it, so if I can get 30 more days, the house will be down.
Thank you. Mr., would you like to say something also?
Yes.
Name and address, and just come to the mic.
My name
Thank you.
Rachel Ann Smith Stevenson, the daughter of Mr. Charles Smith and Rachel Smith. The house are very sentimental to me, and I know that it needs to be tore down, but I don't have the funds to do it with, and I'm ashamed of myself because my parents worked so hard to get what they got. And I feel that she would be comfortable what decision that we have to make to do what we have to do. And I asked you all to allow me to give me a chance to remove her furniture out of the house, which it doesn't mean anything to the boys, but it do mean a lot to me because it belongs to my mother, and I need time to remove it from the house. And I'm willing to do what we have to do to remove it, because I understand that I'm unable to redo it.
Ms. Smith, first I want to thank you for coming today, and you should not feel ashamed or anything about your position where you're at right now, because we all go through things. We all are at different phases in our life depending on what's going on. So I commend you for coming in today, and I really appreciate that. Mr. Smith said that within 30 days, did you say that you will start repairing it, or you will start tearing it down? And none of us, except for Councilwoman DeFranchise, was here in 2008. So I'm not familiar with that at all, but at a minimum, I feel that 30 days is not asking anything too much. Mr. Walters, I personally, and well, obviously we have to vote for it, but I would ask for 30 days and to give Mr. Smith and Mrs. Smith an opportunity to get their family belongings out of there and to be able to tear this building down. And 30 days is 30 days. And I think we as a city can extend some of the support and empathy to our thank you very much, sir. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Thank you, Ms. Smith. Motion by Councilman Carroll, second by Councilman Moreno to close the public hearing.
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0 to close your hearing.
So motion by Councilman Carroll to extend to the Smith for the Clay Street property 30 days, which would be two meetings, to give them the opportunity to tear the house down and get their belongings out of there. I'll ask for my fellow council people's support for the 2-meeting deferral.
Absolutely.
Council, please vote.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Item 9C is a public hearing regarding Resolution B 16813, a resolution calling a public hearing on October 5th, 2017, to determine whether the structures located at 2611 Salem Street in Kenner, Louisiana shall be abated by repair, rehabilitation, demolition, or removal. Mr. Chairman, I've also received a request for a 2-meeting deferral on this item tonight.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Motion by Councilman Carroll, second by Councilman Klein for a 2-meeting deferral. Council, please vote. Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0 for deferral. 2 meetings. Item 10 is opening of bids. We have none. Item 11 is reclassification of zoning for final passage. Item 11A is summary ordinance number 12,291, an ordinance amending Article 5, definitions of the Unified Development Code, ordinance 11,062.
Motion by Councilman Impastato, second by Councilman DeFranchis. Council, please vote. Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I believe, do you want to speak, Mr. Hebert, on this item?
Oh, sorry about that. Mr. Hebert, you have the floor.
Thank you, Council President. This is actually not a rezoning proposal, but it's a proposed ordinance to add some new definitions to the Unified Development Code, and this is just to assist our department, along with the Department of Inspections and Code Enforcement, in our daily activities and responsibilities. This went before the Planning Commission on August 23rd, and they recommended approval.
Thank you, Mr. Hebert. Is there anyone else wanted to speak on this? If not, motion by Councilman Impastato, second by Councilwoman DeFranchis. Council, please vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 12 is other ordinances for final passage. Item 12A is summary ordinance number 12,288, an ordinance amending portions of Chapter 16 entitled Vehicles for Hire of the Kenner Code of Ordinances as per the ordinance contained herein.
Mr. Hebert,
If I could get a motion in a second, sir?
motion by Councilman Segura, second by Councilman Wilmot.
Thank you.
Councilman Segura?
Okay, well, I was confused there because
Yeah.
not like we were going into a public hearing, but this is
No.
a public hearing, so.
Now,
okay.
is this from last time, or this is for this particular? Because your name is still
Oh,
up.
yeah, no.
Okay, you have the
Yes.
floor.
Now, this is the legislation that I originally had put on our first meeting in August to try to bring about some assistance to our Kenner taxi drivers who are registered here in Kenner, but who are prohibited from having the ability to, when they pick up a ride from the airport and go to the city of New Orleans, to pick up a ride to come back. The city has a prohibition against them doing that, but yet any taxis licensed in New Orleans can come to the airport, pick up, go back to New Orleans, and make circles with passengers. The TNCs have the same ability to now pick up and go both directions. So this was put in place August 1st meeting for discussion to seek assistance with the city of New Orleans to help out this dilemma. It seems strictly a fairness issue that taxi drivers operating in what the city of New Orleans clearly defines as a regional network of transportation. They use that term all the time. Mayor Landrieu called me up last year and chastised me for the Uber legislation, saying that I was trying to destroy his regional transportation network that he built. There was never any desire to destroy a regional transportation network. At that time, all we were doing was trying to legalize the TNC industry to operate in our city. But here we are today with, again, hopefully trying to help out a component of business people who are, I guess, unfortunately licensed here in the city of Kenner, because subsequently they're not allowed to pick up in the city of New Orleans when they go there with a drop-off from the airport. So when this was put up, it was not by any means to prohibit New Orleans taxis from operating in the city of Kenner, which they have been doing without licensing for quite a number of years. So we're just trying to hopefully bring some levelness to this regional transportation network that the city of New Orleans is so proud of. And we want to be part of this regional network that has been built, and we want our taxis to be welcomed into this network and given the full ability to pick up fares in New Orleans when they bring fares from the airport, the same as you have given your taxis and your TNC drivers. Now, some of the discussions that have come about from here is that this is a movement to stop the city of New Orleans taxis from operating in the city. Well, it's not. It's just to give two paths of direction to get to the means of being legal in the city of Kenner, and that is to say, if there was a reciprocity, did I get it right? Agreement that says that the city of New Orleans will recognize our taxi drivers in a fair method of registering them in the city to return with pickup fares, that we will do the same for their drivers who will have to start registering here in the city based on other legislation that is in place. So if that reciprocity was put in place, hey, everything would work fine. If it doesn't, that's fine too. Then they would just have to use what is maybe considered a long process to get in, or a little bit more arduous. But we certainly encourage trying to work this out. We have, at the request of the city of New Orleans, deferred this several times because when this was first put on the agenda, it was asked that we defer this to have conversation. That was on August 17th. It's been deferred a couple of times since based upon that request by the city of New Orleans each time. And we are trying to have dialogue. We have, myself particularly, have tried since August 1st, when I first put this on this council's agenda, to have meetings with the city of New Orleans. So out of now a month and a half of this being in the public's purview by being on our agenda, it took a month and a half before I was invited to a meeting with a city of New Orleans council member. Mr. Jared Brissett, who is the chairman of the Transportation Committee for New Orleans, agreed to meet with me and City Attorney Ed Rapier. We met with him, unfortunately, the day before the last council meeting, so it didn't obviously allow for any time to resolve anything. So last council meeting, this council chose at that request to defer it again to this meeting, but I think from the, I don't see Ms. Hart, she's not here. I see Mr. Lee, thank you for coming. That I thought that maybe the message that was sent at that meeting was, let's not drag our feet in getting meetings together to discuss and resolve this. But I guess timetables are not the same with y'all as I thought they would be, because it took another week after that before I received a email from Mr. Brissette inviting me to a transportation committee meeting, as well as the rest of my council members. But that meeting won't be for another 2 weeks. So here again, what takes so long to meet with people is mind-boggling here to me. It'll now be going on 3 months that we tried to meet with City of New Orleans to have this discussion. So what we have tonight is a decision. What do we do with this legislation and still try to honor our desire to meet with the City of New Orleans and have good, honest dialogue? But if the dialogue is not there, obviously I feel at a disadvantage. So I know my colleagues from talking to them today are in somewhat the same dilemma. So I'm not sure what to do right now in that sense, because I have no commitment other than the request for us to attend an October 18th committee meeting to come and present a case. Okay, we'll go present a case. Don't know what the results will be, obviously, because we'll have to wait and see what the council committee chooses to do as far as recommending to their council, presumably to take some action, and no telling how long that will take. So that's the frustration that I'm feeling, and I've had many phone calls, and I see some of the players here in the audience who have called or written thinking, and it's just part of the twisted information. We are not trying to prohibit the City of New Orleans taxis from operating in the City of Kenner Airport. Not once. I don't think anybody up here has ever said that. We were just trying to provide a method to do what was right for our taxis, and subsequently, we hope for your taxis at the same time when they do have to come register with us real soon. So with that, I'll open it back up for the rest of my colleagues to express if they have any opinion, to see where we need to go with this at this point. So I'll close when we finish.
Thank you, Councilman. I see a number of I haven't seen any lights yet for the council. I have some questions, but there are a number of individuals from the airport. If you would like to come up and just give us some information that either supports what Councilman Segura said or contradicts or give us a new perspective, I'd like to hear that. Thank you, sir. Name and address.
Hi, my name is Zach Butterworth. Address 1300 Perdido Avenue, the City Hall, New Orleans. Council members, we've all worked together I'm on my second year working on airport matters for the City of New Orleans. And this time, the Kenner administration's done a lot of stuff for the City of New Orleans. We operated at the state's airport. We serve 83% of the state together right now. For decades, people tried to build a new airport. And this council, this administration, and working with Kenner officials have brought that to fruition. We're building a $1 billion airport together. We've done change orders. We've added on to the airport together. It's on time. It's on budget. And it'll open, hopefully all of us together, there in February 2019. We worked together when Uber and Lyft came to town. That was a tough one. We all talked. We talked regularly. We had meetings. This council actually appointed a select committee that met very regularly and for hours with Councilman Klein and Councilman Wilmot, Councilman Segura, where we talked through these issues and really learned and got to the bottom of it. But I think what we're looking for here is a way to find a solution. And the proposed ordinance as written requires New Orleans, Jefferson, St. Charles, everyone to change their laws. And because of that, it's not just Kevin Dolio, Director of Aviation, it's not just the Aviation Board, it would be a code change in New Orleans, a code change in Jefferson, and also one in St. Charles. And so what we'd propose is one, Councilman Brissette, as a follow-up to the meeting with Councilman Segura, was to come and begin a dialogue before the council. And on that committee is Councilmembers Brissette, Councilmember Gray, who is on the council. Currently, they're all in an election right now. Councilmember Guidry, Councilmember Williams, who serves as our president of the council, and Councilmember Ramsey. So I think they're all looking forward to hearing from you all and learning about this. And I don't think anyone's against helping out and leveling the playing field for Kenner cabs. We just want to do it in a way that is appropriate and works for the entire industry, like you mentioned, the entire taxi cab industry. The second option towards a solution is a working group. And I've had a few quick conversations with CAO Foshi this week about this, and putting together a group that represents the entire community to have these conversations, sort of like we had during the TNC time, where we got together once a week, we locked the door, we spent a couple hours together, and we got to the solution. Because what I'm lacking is the solution. You all, I don't blame you for wanting to pass this, but then the ball then goes to New Orleans City Council, and no one's prepared to catch the ball right now. And so we need a little bit of time, we need a little bit of dialogue, and we want to continue to work together so that we don't have any disruption to the airport. And I know, Councilman, you said, we're not seeking to bar New Orleans taxis. Of course, you're not trying to bar them. But if the ordinance went into effect as written, then that's what would happen. And so we don't want to have any disruptions. I think you'll see there's people from the tourism industry here from both Jefferson and Orleans. There's businesses from across the region. And everyone's here just saying, wait, let's work together. If y'all found a problem that needs fixing, let's all get in the room. And I just don't think we've been able to do that. And I think, Councilman, the first month of August, we were all tied up and dealing with some of the flooding issues in New Orleans. But we're here, we're focused on this, we want to find a solution. I just haven't found the solution or haven't been presented with one that we could all sort of take to our council, to the Jefferson Council, to St. Charles, as well as Orleans, to pass and move forward so that the airport continues to grow. We've already served 7 million people this year. It's a record, and I think we want to celebrate that together. So thank y'all.
Thank you, Attorney.
Wait, Mr. Butterworth.
Hold on one second.
I couldn't hear who was talking to me. Oh, hey, Councilman.
But, Councilman, could you hold? I like Attorney Rapier to address, and then we'll be able. Then I'll give it to you.
Thank you.
Attorney.
If Councilman Reno would like to ask a question of Mr. Butterworth, and I can respond afterwards to issues that Mr. Butterworth stated that are factually incorrect.
Okay. Councilman Reno, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Butterworth, taxis that operate in the city of New Orleans are required to have a CPNC, correct?
Yes, sir.
And they can drop off and pick up, they can do whatever, they can completely operate in the city of New Orleans.
Yes, sir.
Mechanical contractors in the city of New Orleans, are they required to be licensed?
I'm not aware, sir.
Plumbing contractors? I mean, can anybody go do plumbing work in the city of New
I
Orleans
assume you
without
need
a
a
license?
state contracting license and an occupational license, but honestly, I'm not aware.
Okay. I'm in the HVAC business. I'm a mechanical contractor, okay? I have a state mechanical contractor's license. That does not allow me to operate in every parish in every city in Louisiana. I have to go to Kenner, and I have to get a mechanical license to do work in Kenner. If I go do work in New Orleans, I have to go get a New Orleans mechanical license. So basically, I look at it like taxis are about the same way. So if you want to operate in a municipality, you're required to have a license. If you domiciled in that municipality, you're also required to have an occupational license. My business is in Kenner on Williams Boulevard, so I have a City of Kenner occupational license. I also hold a license in Kenner, Jefferson, Orleans, Slidell, Harahan, and it goes on and on and on. My questions to you is regarding the CPNC is taxis are required to have a CPNC in order to operate. Are CPNCs available to taxis? If let's say I was in the taxi business and I had a taxi cab and I was domiciled and operated in Kenner, can I go to New Orleans and get a CPNC, following all the rules, whatever regulations?
There are no unused CPNCs right now in New Orleans. So it's not that you wouldn't be allowed to do it because you're from Kenner. It's that someone that lives in New Orleans, there's not a process to go apply for a CPNC tomorrow.
So maybe that should be part of the negotiation, that our taxi drivers can be allowed to go to New Orleans and get a CPNC, and the city council, I'm just throwing this out here, okay, we're just discussing this. The City of New Orleans Council needs to make available to the Kenner taxi drivers that have a Kenner CPNC a way to get a New Orleans CPNC, and then that would eliminate the problem that we're having with our Kenner taxis saying, hey, we can't pick up in New Orleans. We can leave from the airport and go drop off in New Orleans, we can't pick up. I know as a mechanical contractor, if I went into New Orleans and let's say somebody wanted me to do a $50,000 job and y'all said, I'm sorry, we don't have any more mechanical permits. I think I would be in the same position as our taxi cab drivers. I'd be, livid. I'd be upset. So I'm just mentioning all this because I'm looking at how other businesses operate, and it seems like the taxis are the only ones that are having this kind of issue. Because I can tell you, I have lots of friends that are plumbers, electricians, mechanical contractors and all. Nobody has this problem. You get a state license,
Right.
and you can go to any municipality, and you can get that license in that municipality, and you still got to pay the filing fees and do everything. You got to renew your licenses every year. You got to do everything that everybody else has to do. So with that said, I just wanted to put that out in the audience. And
No, Councilmember, I think that's definitely a solution that would require our council to act, to put in place either something in the code that allows for a reciprocal agreement or some specific grant of a number of CPNCs. And we've begun the process of thinking through that and how do we grant CPNCs only to Kenner and not to Jefferson, and Kenner and not to Gretna. So those are just some sticky legal issues that I think everyone's going to have to work out together, and that's why I think we're urging a delay in order to us to continue to engage and talk.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilman.
President.
Attorney, you have the floor now.
Thank you, Council President. I'd like to clear up some factually incorrect statements by Mr. Butterworth and some other issues that we have been dealing with that not only apply to this particular ordinance, but also ran through the entire TNC ordinance when we were trying to put that forward. The factually incorrect information is being put out by convention bureaus, the city, and others. First off, we are not asking this ordinance nor the TNC ordinance that you passed back in June of this year. It's not asking the city of New Orleans to do anything. What this ordinance does is require taxi cabs, whether they be from New Orleans or St. Charles Parish or anywhere else, to come into compliance with our laws. Let's go back in a little history. The city of New Orleans and the airport, over the history of their lifespan out here with Kenner, have normally taken the position that New Orleans and the airport controls what happens at the airport, and that Kenner's law does not apply there. Well, that was settled in a lawsuit a long time in the 80s, in which it was determined that the airport is responsible to comply with and governed by Kenner's ordinances. So things that happen at the airport are governed by Kenner's ordinances because the airport is within Kenner's jurisdiction. Plain, flat, and simple. Now, state law requires that the municipality issue law, it is a shall, issue regulations concerning vehicles for hire. So this body, this council is required by state law to regulate for hire taxis. You all are the ones that put in the regulations for cabs that operate anywhere within the jurisdiction of Kenner. New Orleans has no say in that. We have no say in what happens in New Orleans. That's why we're not asking New Orleans to do anything. Our current ordinance, and maybe we should do, and maybe this council should do what the general counsel for the airport said, which would, if we followed her advice, would run the taxis out of the city of Kenner. Currently, the current law in Kenner requires all vehicles that are picking up as taxis anywhere in the city of Kenner, including the airport, to have a Kenner CPNC. New Orleans cabs don't have that. Jefferson cabs don't have that. Gretna cabs don't have that. St. Charles Parish cabs don't have that. Historically, Kenner has turned a blind eye to that. Historically, Kenner has turned a blind eye to that. We turned a blind eye to the TNCs while we were trying to enact a ordinance to regulate the TNCs. In June of this year, you passed an ordinance, a complete rewrite of our Chapter 16 ordinance, which included new legislation to regulate TNCs. It changed and lifted the ceiling, making it no ceiling on the number of CPNCs issued by Kenner. So now, and that law has a 6-month delay in the enforcement of it or effectiveness of it, or until the Department of Code tells us that they're ready to start enforcing it. That law also contained a pathway to, 2 pathways for people to obtain CMPCs that didn't have them. One, if you were from another jurisdiction that had issued you a CPNC, you could come here to Kenner, show us your CPNC, pay the permitting fee of $250, and then get yourself permitted. It also contained the regular route to get a CPNC, where if you came in and started the application process from scratch. In August of this year, August 17th, you passed more changes to the CPNC law by removing certain regulations, such as vehicle size, inspection requirements, and things for the CPNCs, to make their requirements a little bit more level with the requirements that you indicated or implemented for the TNCs. At that time, we noticed that we didn't have a reciprocity requirement or a reciprocity request for the, shall we call it, the fast lane, if you had a CPNC from somewhere else. So what these changes or this ordinance that's in front of you right now, all this says, and all it is doing is say, fast lanes out here, if you have a CPNC from somewhere else, come show us your CPNC, and we'll give you the permit to operate in the city of Kenner. It will make you legal where you haven't been legal ever before. And we said, but you can't, what this ordinance, if you pass it as it's in front of you, says, but if the jurisdiction you come from, New Orleans, St. Charles, Jefferson, Gretna, St. Tammany Parish, anywhere, doesn't offer a similar fast lane to allow Kenner CPNCs to operate in your jurisdiction, doesn't say you have to, doesn't say you must. It says if it doesn't provide it, then you can't use the fast lane, but you can still come over here and get the CPNC by going through the whole process. And we have an unlimited number of CPNCs. So for anybody to say that Kenner is dictating to New Orleans or to Jefferson that they must change their laws, that's flat out false. For anyone to say that this legislation or the June legislation that you passed, where you rewrote the entire Chapter 16 law that says that we are running taxi cabs out of here or trying to prevent them from doing business in Kenner, that's false. All you're doing is saying, come into compliance from what you should have been doing, and here's one of 2 options for you to do it. That's what this law proposes. We can go back, and we have the time to do that since the new law doesn't come into effect for another, at most, 4 months. We can go back and enforce the old law and start writing tickets to New Orleans and Jefferson and other cabs that are here operating illegally. But I don't think you want that. I know they don't want that. I would wish they would quit representing that's what our law is. I wish they would read our laws before they make comments on it. And I wish they would get back to us a little bit faster than the day before the meeting. 2 weeks is a long time. They've had these things on the record since August at the latest. We've been trying to get these things moved since August. So you're not asking anybody to do anything. You're not requesting New Orleans to do anything. You're just saying that if you do put a reciprocity, it makes it easier for your cabs to get the CP&C here. So I just wanted to correct the record based on what's been out in the public from that you all have been receiving in the way of emails and letters, from what Mr. Butterworth has said, that we are requesting New Orleans to do something. We're not requesting New Orleans to do anything. We're just saying, New Orleans, if you want to make your cabs easier to get permitted in Kenner, here's how you do it.
Thank you, Attorney.
Could I just respond, since he said I misstated the law? I just think I never heard anywhere that I misstated the law. The effect of the law is that it would bar taxis from outside the jurisdiction from operating here if enforced. And so that's not a misstatement of the law. That's a clear effect. Now, we don't legislate in a vacuum. You all don't legislate in a vacuum, and we're looking for a solution that's a regional solution. And so, sure, that's not the effect in Kenner, but the effect from the outside looking in is certainly that. And so I would ask you all just to continue to talk with us about this, to continue to work with us. The idea that we haven't attended a meeting or been hard to meet with, we've never been invited to a meeting we didn't attend. I can promise you. I've never been, if any of you all have ever called me and I've never called you back, that's never occurred. And so we're trying to work this one. It's a sticky issue that requires a lot of thought. This is a big issue for the entire region. And we're asking everybody to pause and to work together like we've done in the past to get a lot of really big things done.
Thank you, Attorney. Director, would you like to?
Excuse me, Greg,
Hold on.
before we dismiss.
Hold on,
Zach,
Congressman. Let the director go. I don't see your name up here. I want him to have I just now saw it. But I want the director to be able to say something, and then we'll be able to talk after him.
I won't go anywhere.
All right.
Name and address, Director.
Kevin Dolio, 3700 Orleans Avenue. And again, as the last time, at the last meeting, I'm not here to argue the merits of the ordinance that's before you. I simply want to state the impact at the airport if it is moved before reciprocity is agreed to with the city of New Orleans. And given discussions, New Orleans has come back and offered to begin meetings. I would ask that you all allow that process to work before moving this ordinance. There's about 3,500 trips out of the airport a day using taxis, TNCs, shuttles, and other modes of public transportation. Taxis account for about 1,500 on average pickups a day at the airport. The cab population currently at the airport is just over 1,100 taxis. Of that, I believe it's 100, it was 198, I think it's about 187 are Kenner cabs in that number. If this moves as is, and if it does have the impact of not allowing New Orleans, Jefferson, St. Charles cabs to pick up at the airport, you're losing the vast majority of the cabs at the airport, and you're now trying to service those 1,500 pickups a day with about 183 cabs. It would create a very significant issue at the airport, and it's not for locals. It's not our citizens, it's visitors to the city that would feel the impact of that. So I just wanted to state that and just let you know the impact in numbers of what this could cause. And just ask, again, that you take a pause, work with the City of New Orleans, and try to come to a resolution so that New Orleans either gives reciprocity or there's some other solution worked out that works and inures to the benefit of everyone.
Thank you, Director. Oh, Councilman Klein, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. This comment would be directed to Mr. Butterworth. I formed a committee to study these issues, and you and I have met along with Councilman Segura and Councilman Wilmot, and I'm in favor of continuing to discuss the matter with the city. I think the best way to handle this thing is to try to meet, again, discuss this with the city council themselves, because they'll be voting on it, right?
Yes, sir.
And try to come to a solution for this matter, and it would help everybody, the taxi cabs in Kenner, the city of New Orleans. But the ordinance as it states now, and it always has, it don't say that we're going to exclude the cabs from New Orleans from picking up at the airport if you don't do X, Y, and Z. We've never said that, I don't believe. So it's a $250 fee for a CPN license in Kenner, and I believe it's the same in New Orleans. Is that correct?
I think it's actually only 150.
150.
Yeah.
Okay, and the sticking point now for us is that there's a limit on the CPN licenses in New Orleans, and we have to figure out a way if we're going to allow some of those. It's only 187 cabs anyway in Kenner, and not all of them probably go to New Orleans. I'm not sure what percentage goes to New Orleans.
It's most of them. It's all but about 10 of them, I think.
How many?
All but about 10
All, okay,
on
so
our books.
substantially all of them. In any event, we need to try to find a solution that would benefit the taxi cabs in Kenner to pick up in New Orleans, because as we said in the prior meetings, if you pick up somebody in Kenner and you drive to New Orleans, you can't. It's against the law to pick up somebody in New Orleans, so you lose all your time, you lose money, you lose the mileage and stuff on your cab, and it would be nice for our cab drivers to pick up somebody in New Orleans should the traffic justify that, from New Orleans to Kenner and Kenner to New Orleans. So I'm for continuing to discuss the matter with the city and the airport representatives, and hopefully my council members will be too.
Thank you, council member. I
Thank
think
you.
I just
Thank you,
wanted to
Councilman.
clarify one point. The airport and the city of New Orleans are not against the Orleans Parish taxis having to come out here and register and pay whatever reasonable registration fees there are and to follow all the rules. I don't think that's the concern. The concern is that in the ordinance as written, it says that if you're taking that long process, you have to move your headquarters or have your headquarters in Kenner. And so we didn't know how those people could even comply with that. So it's not that we're against the long process or the short process. We're not against any processes. You know, the hoops that you all and the rules that you want to put in place are your business. The one that we didn't think they could comply with is take my headquarters to Kenner. And so that's why, that's the sticking point on.
Right, and I think that's why we need further discussions to try to work on a solution or solutions for the matter.
Thank you.
Councilman Segura, you have the floor.
Thank you. First point, Mr. Butterworth, you kind of inferred that there's a willingness by your administration, because you can only speak for them, I presume, not the council,
Sure.
to work with us. Mr. Mayor, did you not ask the mayor last week a question on that?
Yeah, I was sitting here a little confused, Mr. Butterworth, and we have a great relationship, good communication, but I actually text Mayor Landrieu, and I had the text from this council chamber when they decided to defer it, and asked him for help, back and forth, and I gave him the benefit of the doubt a few times, even used the term, I think we're speaking about apples and oranges, and he was very clear, what's done is done. If the administration has changed, then Mitch Landrieu owes me a text message back, because I can tell you, that was not what was in writing to me, which I passed on to this council, most of the council. I didn't have a chance to speak to all of you all, but I passed it on to the majority of this council. So if something has changed, we have not been told that in 2 weeks. And when you all came to us for Uber, I stepped up, I worked with this council, I called this emergency council meeting, a special council meeting, and we did what y'all asked for to work this out. All this group is trying to do is work this out now for the Kenner cabs. So has the administration's position changed?
I think the administration's position's always been that we want to work together on this issue. You all have my cell phone number, and.
But you're not the mayor. He spoke to the mayor.
It's
Right.
mayor to
I
mayor,
don't-
just to let you
And I
know.
apologize, Mayor Zahn. I haven't seen the text. I'm not sure exactly what was said. I apologize.
Right,
but-
I can tell you for sure, it was like, what's done is done, basically. We need to, move forward. One term that was used, this is a multi-billion-dollar company that's coming in. Do you treat everyone like this? Look, I mean, I reached out to the administration, and I hate to call out the mayor publicly, but when you come here and you say something different to these council people, actually, I'm glad Councilman Segura brought it up, because when I told these people in good faith what he said, we have a different message today. But this is the same thing all the time. It's always delayed with the city of New Orleans. We need it a little bit quicker. What I would suggest to this council, and of course, I'm not a council member, but I mean, this does fall back at times on the administration, is I would pass this tonight with a 3-month grace period, and I'd see how we work it out. And I would feel that New Orleans would want to work it out with us at that point. We've got to start the ball rolling somewhere. If we don't start it, the communication is not going to start. We need to start that communication, and I believe we have to protect our Kenner cabs. I mean, you all, including me, promised these people, these businesses, that we would come back and do something. We've done part of it with all of y'all's help, with something that Councilman Segura put up, and he put it up again. Let's do a grace period. We can work with the enforcement. We can work with the city of New Orleans. I have text messages to prove it that I've attempted to work with the city of New Orleans. I have a history that proves that I've worked with the city of New Orleans. Like I said, this is not an attack on you, but it's a little discouraging when you hear a different message from the city of New Orleans. And look, you get all the credit for it. You're here tonight, unfortunately for you. But you tell them a different story than what I told the majority of them last Thursday.
Well, Mayor, I
2
think
Thursdays ago.
The one difference that this requires is our council to act. And so many times when we work together, it's administration and administration. And right now, you know that there's an election going on in New Orleans, which isn't any, I know you're concerned, but I think allowing for that dialogue to occur ahead of time makes a lot more sense than putting at risk a major player in our regional economy. And so what we're saying is try to talk first, and which we're starting with our council, right? Because they're the key players in this, because they'll have to act. And then if things fall apart, you can act at any time.
Look, and again, I attempted that, and I know the election cycle because we have a major parish election going on, so we're right there with you. What happens in Jefferson Parish right now affects the city of Kenner, so we know what it's like to be in the middle of an election cycle and still do our work.
Okay, Greg.
Thank you. Councilman Segura, you have the
Continuing on
floor.
this discussion then, Zach, I made sure that Mr. Rapier sent you a copy of this legislation the day I filed it, which was in July, right before we met on August 3rd, I think it was. So you knew this was here. You and I spoke, and you said you were going to try to handle it administratively first. So let's be clear. We did allow that to happen administratively.
Administratively, yes, sir.
So there wasn't no non-dialogue.
No,
There was a dialogue where you were going to try to do it administratively. Then you pushed me to the council, which we started that dialogue. What what Mayor Zahn is referring to is when he reached out to your mayor, mayor to mayor, asked him for help with the council and got that response. No, I'm not going to help you.
Again, I'm not sure, I wasn't privy to the text, Councilman.
Okay, that's fine.
I certainly
Mr.
said,
Doley.
I wanted to try, the administration wanted to try to fix the problem, to fix this problem. We reviewed it with lawyers, we reviewed it with the policy folks, and found that we did not have the power to fix this administratively. And so
I
then
get
the
it.
next
You
step
told me
is
that.
we have to go to our council, and then that's where we are.
Okay.
And so we want to continue to work with our council.
Sure. Mr. Doley, just want to clarify, don't go off that. Mr. Doley,
you kept reiterating in your presentation, we are going to shut down taxis from operating at your airport. We are not trying to shut down taxis at your airport. How hard do we make that clear to you? There's nothing my city assistant attorney just read you the statute and clearly said, at least to my understanding, and I hope everybody else, there's nothing and never has been anything in here to try to stop New Orleans taxis from working at your airport. Why would you repeat that again?
Sorry if I was misunderstood, but my statement was, if it has the impact of
The impact
stopping
meaning what?
Orleans,
All we're saying is there's
Paris
two
cabs.
ways to get RCP&C, this way or this way. Doesn't say neither way. It says you have the option this way or this way. That's what's on the table right now.
Okay.
Doesn't say if you choose this one, you don't get this one. So we are looking to register your taxis from New Orleans at your airport, period. It just depends which way they want to go about it. Clear?
Okay.
Thank you. Now, Zach, you say that in this legislation, a big component is the headquarters, okay? Well, I have an amendment right now that's going to take that word out.
Okay.
Now, when I take that word out, that takes away that concern, correct?
I'd like to go review the amendment, but
Oh, I don't have another 2 weeks, though.
Councilman, was the
That,
amendment
would you,
submitted
Ed,
ahead
would
of
you
time?
please hand him this?
There's so much communication that I didn't get.
Attorney, so while you're looking at that,
I would.
are you
need
still?
Well, I'll
10 minutes
allow
to
him to
read.
look at it, certainly.
Okay, we'll come back.
Okay, if
Councilwoman
somebody wants to
DeFrances.
ask a different question, I'll
Yes. Councilwoman
defer to
DeFrances,
that.
you have the floor.
go.
Thank you. First of all, there were some points made that are accurate. This legislation is not technically going to help our taxi cab drivers. I asked Mr. Rapier that, okay? And the reason I say that, it gives them the option, even though they don't want to take it. And I do understand they don't want to take it because they don't want to have to have business here in Kenner, but they do have the option to get a CPNC in the city of Kenner, your taxi cab drivers. Unfortunately, there is no reciprocity that's established in this ordinance for our taxi cab drivers. And it is absolutely imperative to me that we help our taxi cab drivers. We have made commitments to them. They are Kenner residents. They need to be able to have reciprocity. And I think the only way we're going to get it is if we talk to each other and work together, because the council does make the laws. It does pass ordinances. But I will also say that if at that meeting on the 18th, there is no real evidence that we are moving forward toward reciprocity, then I see no reason why the talks would continue. It has to be an open dialogue. It has to be a dialogue in which we look out and realize that both parties have to win in order for this to move forward appropriately. It can't be it cannot be a one-sided victory, because that means that someone lost. And so if on the 18th, I have promised to attend, I believe Councilman Klein has committed to attend, I believe Councilman Moreno has committed to attend, as well as Councilman Segura. So I know many of us have already committed to attend earlier. That meeting has to be very productive, or there will be. I don't think there is one person on this council that will agree to another deferral if there is not something truly positive that results from that meeting.
I think that's fair, Councilmember.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Certainly pass that along.
Councilman Segura, you can finish your questioning.
I have not. Real quick.
Let the other lawyer look at it,
Well, we don't want to, do you want to, we come back to that later. Do you want to close out and give somebody else a chance to talk?
Yeah, I don't know if anybody else is with.
Are you taking more public comment?
Yes, yes. Mr. Yes, sir. Name and address.
Good evening. My
Good
name
evening.
is Niran Gunasekara. I'm the president of the Taxi Cab Union, ASME Local 234. I'm a little surprised at two cities fighting over taxis. I like that, it's good. The time you all passed the TNC rules, Mr. Mitch Landrieu, the boss of the Sewage and Water Board in New Orleans, made a call to Mr. Benzon and said, stop it. You all need to go back and rewrite all the Chapter 16 for the TNC ordinance. That's fine. I thought we had something that y'all would give us, which means a level playing field. Unfortunately, it didn't happen, and that's why we are arguing today, because we didn't get a level playing field, and now y'all feel like y'all need to stand by the Kenner taxis, which I am for. They need to have their peace of mind because everyone is working at the airport today. When the TNC rules were passed in the city of New Orleans, we told the city of New Orleans what's going to happen to us. Do not bring it to the airport. If they are taking one side, give us one side to eat. What's happening today is you got over 1,100 taxis at the airport. You got unlimited TNC vehicles, 7,000. They could come at any time. So no one is making money. At the airport, every taxi driver's income has been reduced by 50%. And the taxi drivers are in such a situation. Most of the cab drivers who get decals for the 2018 has not gone to get one. They cannot afford to get one. They are borrowing money. They are borrowing money through their credit cards, friends, banks, and it's a matter of time before we crash. So I thought by having the level playing field theory through the city of Kenner that we would get some relief. It has not happened.
1 minute, sir.
Okay, whatever you all do, please think about our situation. Yes, all cabs could get a permit or occupation license from the city of Kenner. That's no issue. But how much? And the other issue is the city of New Orleans cabs are now all coming to the airport because none of them are making money downtown. They are staying longer and longer in hotels. So if you stay 2-3 hours at a hotel line and you get a $5 trip, it's better if you stay 3 or 4 hours at the airport and you are guaranteed $36. That's why any given time, go on Airline Drive and look to your left to the cell phone lot, you're going to see 300-400 cabs because that's where they could make minimum of $36 staying 4 hours. So
Thank
if
you, thank you,
divide
sir.
that- Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You have a question? Excuse me, sir. Councilman Reno, I have one question. He didn't take it.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes.
So are you in favor of this legislation that's proposed right now?
Yes,
In
I'm-
behalf of the taxis?
I mean, Kenner has a right. I have recognized this right. If you come to do business in Kenner, you would ask for an occupation license. That's the, I know some of the routes that you all are discussing is the CPNCs and all that. But I know in the city of New Orleans has 1,687 CPNCs, and they are not issuing any CPNCs. So the cab drivers have to buy it in the open market. And I don't know how you could ask a CPNC unless they go and change that.
Can I ask you another question?
Yes.
Do you have a City of New Orleans CPNC?
Yes,
So you're a cab driver, and you have a cab, and you have a New Orleans CPNC?
right,
And you're out of St. Rose, if I'm correct?
right.
Okay. Do you have a Kenner CPNC?
I have a Jefferson Parish CPNC.
CPNC?
Right.
Okay. So do you operate, you personally, do you operate in Kenner?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I
So-
work at the airport, but I'm not legally permitted to pick up in any other Kenner hotels.
So just, so
Just
you
at the
operate, but just at the airport?
Right.
Okay, but you do have a New Orleans and you do have a Jefferson Parish.
Right.
So do you feel the Kenner taxis that have a Kenner CPNC?
Yes.
Do you feel that they should have, if they're operating in Jefferson Parish, that they should have a Jefferson Parish CPNC?
Yes, I mean, if it's possible.
Oh,
The issue for the Kenner taxis is, it's not like before. They were making their money at the airport. Now, because of Uber and Lyft coming without much regulations, and there are 7,000 cars, they are not making their money in New Orleans. The only fair share we get is at the airport.
Okay.
The airport has been very nice to us, and they give us a fair share to make some money. But if you have so many cabs at one place and so many TNC vehicles at one area, how much money are you going to make?
Well, let me ask you a question, because you just said that you have a New Orleans CPNC.
Yes.
And you have a Jefferson Parish.
Right.
So if we pass this legislation, you will now be required to get a Kenner CPNC.
Right.
And go through the entire process. In addition to that, you're going to have your headquarters in Kenner.
Right.
You're okay with that? You're going to move from St. Rose to Kenner. You're going to get a Kenner occupational license
Right.
in order to get a Kenner CPNC. Do you understand
I
this?
understand that part, yes.
And you're still in favor of that?
Well, at this stage, I don't know, because I'm in a peculiar situation. I'm the president of the taxi union, which I had to represent all parishes and the cities. And at the same time, I drive a Jefferson Parish taxi for a living. I have a CPNC in the city of New Orleans. And to come to the airport, if you required me to have a CPNC, then I'll have to put that CPNC in my Jefferson Parish or my Orleans Parish CPNC. I don't know how that would work, but you all will have to work as lawmakers to accommodate somebody like me.
Because the way I read this legislation, and Mr. City Attorney, you can correct me if I'm wrong, this legislation says that they're required to have a headquarters in Kenner in order to get a Kenner CPNC and and I just opened it up and looked at it again to make sure. Louisiana is scratched out, and the word Kenner is put in, a Kenner occupational license. And in order to get a Kenner occupational license, the company has to be domiciled in Kenner. And I'm not an attorney, but I'm a business owner for 43 years, and I've been unable to get an occupational license in New Orleans because my business is domiciled in Kenner. New Orleans will not give me a New Orleans occupational license because I don't have a storefront in New Orleans. So correct me now, because I'm really confused. Here I have a taxi cab, the president of the taxi cab union say, hey, I'm okay with this. And I'm going, do you realize that this is going to require you to move your business to Kenner and get a Kenner CPNC when he's just stated that he's got an Orleans and a Jefferson? I mean, I don't know.
So in Orleans Parish, even though if your address is somewhere else besides Orleans, they allow you to get an occupation license. And that's how, if you all are going to craft something, you'll have to go that route. That will take that away. Yes.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to hear the attorney answer Councilman Reyno's question, since that is in question.
Let's start with the headquarters issue, because that was discussed earlier. And Councilman Sigur has some amendment language, which, if voted on today, would remove that from this ordinance.
So presently, you're saying Councilman Reyno is correct?
The way it is currently written and on the agenda for today, if no amendments are made to it, if they are not able to take advantage of the what I've been calling the fast lane and not have to go through the entire process, but that would only occur if there's reciprocity, Yes, they would have to have a physical presence in Kenner, as it is currently written.
But you're saying there are some amendments?
I've entered an amendment.
Hold on, Councilman Segura.
There are amendments that have been floated around at that Councilman Segura had me draft, one of which would remove that requirement.
That was my question. There are amendments out there.
Yes, sir.
Correct. Thank you.
Point of order, Mr. Do I still have the floor
Yes.
or no?
Yes, you still have the floor.
Okay, I just wanted, go ahead.
So you have another question?
Okay, well, I'm just learning about this amendment right now, okay? So I wasn't aware of the amendment, so I want more time. As a vote on this council, I am now going to ask, and I'll allow Councilman Segura to put up his amendment, but I would like it to be able to look at this harder. So I'm going to, right now, ask for a one-meeting deferral.
Well, we're not there yet, but thank you. I'm going to let the next person speak.
Al Morella, 4260 East Loyola Drive, 5th District, 45 years. First of all, I want to say, Ed Rappier, you were right on point in everything you said. I also agree with Councilman Segura. He's right on point, and so is the mayor. Now, the city of Kenner, after sitting in here for several months and listening to this issue going back and forth, the city of Kenner has been trying to negotiate in good faith all along. But the city of New Orleans, it's not about any good faith on their part. For years now, since that airport's been back here, they've always figured they want control when it comes to that airport. They haven't realized they might own that airport, but that airport sits in our backyard. I've been saying this for years. This is about control. That's what Mitch Landrieu is about. That's why his city's in the shape that it's in right now.
Mr. Morella, let's just...
Okay, but anyway, I'm sticking to the point. But anyway, all I'm going to say to you is this. This is what it's about. It's about control. I support this legislation. I support the amendments that's in it. And I suggest that we move forward. Now, Councilman Segura, Mr. Butterworth was up here just a few minutes ago, and he's telling Councilman Segura that every meeting that he was invited to, he attended. At the last council meeting, Councilman Segura put the attorney they sent up here on the spot to where she couldn't answer Councilman Segura's questions when he told her, we've been reaching out to you, we've been trying to get a meeting with you, we got no response. And she couldn't even give him an answer. Now, this man's going to stand up here and say that he attends every meeting that he's invited to. There's no good faith on the other side, man, whatsoever. So I suggest that we move on. You're not going to get anything. This is going to continue on just like it is. I suggest we move forward with this legislation, and that's the end of it. And I expect this council and this administration to stand up to the city of New Orleans when it comes to that airport and let them know it's in our backyard. They don't have full control over that airport, and they never will, not as long as Kenner's a city. Anybody got any comments, any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morella. Yes, sir. Did you want to speak? State your name and address, please.
Yes, I'm Leon Matthews, 3400 Octavia Street, New Orleans. And I just like to kind of agree with President Laurent, because
When you say you agree, which part are you, because he said a lot.
well, I agree with the part with the CPNC and the Uber. Uber is cutting into a lot of the business, and that's why there's a lot of cabs be at the airport, because I mostly work the city, and the city full of Uber cars. We're not making the money in the city. And I don't have nothing against Kenner cabs working in the city, but the only thing is, if you want to work in the city, you got to have a city CPNC. Yeah, because that's the only reason. So I got a city CPNC, but I pay a different price from the city to work at the airport. It ain't like I'm working at the airport without paying a fee, because I'm also paying a $200 fee to work at the airport. If I didn't pay that $200 fee to work at the airport, I wouldn't be able to even go to the airport. So I kind of agree with what
your president
said. you know, and I'm not for it neither. I just hope y'all come up with a better solution, because we all is hurting. We all is hurting. Ain't so much because of the Kenner cab drivers, just we so overfloated with the Uber cars. We not making no money.
Thank you, sir. Name and address, Mr. Tiff.
My name is Greg Taft. I live at 3720 West Loyola Drive. I've just got a couple comments about this because it does concern me. Mr. Skure, bullying and forcing yourself on them is not going to work. The same way with New Orleans. That's what they do to us, and I understand that. We have to negotiate with them. We have to talk to them. We have to have time to talk to them. Mayor Zahn, I understand because, you know, New Orleans has always traditionally been, you know, they think they're the bear. But I've worked in the New Orleans system in the past, and it does take a little time, but they do work with you. What I'm afraid of this whole thing is one word: perception. Perception of the cab drivers thinking that one thing is not fair to another. The other perception is we started this when we worked on the Uber legislation. That's what started it. And then it has kind of compiled and turned into this fabulous nightmare that we're looking at tonight. Now, my only suggestion is that we give them, they say you got the next meeting within 2 weeks?
October 18th, which would be the day before our next council meeting.
So that means that we would have to move it to the council meeting thereafter?
If we, as Councilwoman DeFrances, thought we could get a good feeling from that meeting.
Right.
But if
Now,
we don't,
I
then
agree with
we
that.
don't know when that may be.
Right, but when you talk to them, and you have to forgive me, because I don't know what y'all do, okay? I mean, I really don't. But when you go to talk to them,
1 minute, Mr. Tiff.
they would give you a sense if they're wanting to work with you, or would they just, I mean, if they say they're going to work with you and they come up with.
I can say I'm going to work with you on other issues, but if I never meet with you, how does that mean I'm
Well,
working?
but if you meet with the council, and let's just go with this. If I meet with the council and they come up with suggestions, you come up with suggestions, that's where you start working from. That's how you do it in business. You start putting all the eggs in the basket, then you start weeding through them eggs to find out which one is going to work. What I'm asking is if this meeting that you would have, if it shows their willingness to work, would we be willing to go to, you know, the next council meeting if that's what it took? All I'm saying is perception here is because when you look at what's happening, we're tearing ourselves apart.
15 seconds, Mr. Tiff.
And not going anywhere with it. If we pass it, it kind of looks foolish in one set of eyes because we're passing something that we're not even willing to or ready to enforce. And that to me doesn't make any sense. That's just my comments.
Thank you, sir.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Sir, are you all right? Okay, name and address.
Hi, my name is Harrison Crabtree. I'm at 1100 Poydras Street, the Energy Center. I'm here this evening representing Greater New Orleans, Inc. GNO Inc., the 10-parish economic development organization for Southeast Louisiana, is reaching out this evening to express concern regarding this proposed ordinance. The traveling public, including hundreds of thousands of business travelers our region receives annually, expect efficient, convenient transport across our region. While we recognize that this ordinance is not intended to allow Kenner taxis to pick up in adjacent jurisdictions, we are concerned this ordinance will severely limit options at the airport by essentially barring 83% of the taxis currently picking up at the airport. In short, this ordinance severely puts at risk our recently hard-earned reputation as an improved destination for both business and travel. How will we explain to new passengers on British Airways flights that there are no taxis?
Council President, it has.
Let him, Mr. Rapier, let him finish. I'll give you an opportunity to.
Under the light of this new amendment, we would encourage you to defer this measure and to continue the conversation with key stakeholders so that we can appropriately address this issue together. Thank you.
Thank you,
Please
sir.
define
Hold
stakeholder.
on, Councilman Segura, wait a second. You do not have the floor.
Sorry.
Attorney, you have the floor.
It is keep being said by people coming up to the mic that this ordinance, either as draft presently to be voted on, or as having been voted on on the June 15th, where you put in the ability for the fast lane, is going to hinder or keep taxis from picking up at the airport. It isn't. All it does is require them to come into compliance with the law and get a permit to operate in Kenner, which the law requires them to do right now. There is no prohibition against taxis. It doesn't prevent anybody from getting a permit or a CPNC. So to continuously hear that this ordinance is designed to block 80% of the taxis is a false statement. And people continuously say that. All this ordinance does is give one of two ways to obtain the permit that they are required to have to operate legally in Kenner. That is it.
May I respond?
Thank you.
May I respond?
Yes.
Yes, so that statement was under the current proposed ordinance that would require taxis to relocate here. That's why we are suggesting under the proposed amendment that we continue to further discuss this issue so that we can explore it further.
Thank you. And Attorney, I'm just going to say that obviously people sometimes hear what they want to hear. They say what they want to say. If the law is as it is, then we will know once it goes into effect, and then you will have to stop saying it. So you will never stop anybody from coming up here to say, this is what I'm hearing, if that's what they want to hear.
I understand
So
that, Councilman.
I can understand your passion, all the work you put into it, so that's just the reality that we have to deal with.
False narratives of this ordinance are going around, and it's stirring people up with bad facts. And
I got you.
Really, it creates perception problems for the council. It presents perception problems for the city that are just not warranted.
Are you saying it's fake news? Are you saying that?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. I thought I'd never say that, but I just had to say that. That's right. Okay. Councilman Pistola, you have the floor, sir. Councilman Pistola, you have the floor, sir.
Now, I don't know whether this is premature or not, but I think the concept that is getting missed and lost in the shuffle here is regionalism. You know, municipalities in the state of Louisiana, Greater New Orleans area in particular, has been plagued by territorialism for a long time. I was trying not to go on a diatribe, but I feel compelled to, in light of the comments. What has been lost in the Greater New Orleans area is looking at the Greater New Orleans area as a region as a whole, and not each municipality fighting just for their take, that sort of thing. That is what has hampered our growth. And I think both the city of New Orleans, the city of New Orleans for sure, has maintained its territorialism, and I think that's a problem. But under even the revised proposals, I think that what is being proposed, unfortunately, falls into that territorial mindset that I think we need to get away from. This is not, look, I'm not going to talk about the electrical business or HVAC or any of the other industries. It's about this industry. It's about what is going on with cabs. I've been an advocate that, frankly, I don't understand why we have a cab bureau in Kenner and why our cabs can't just be addressed at the Jefferson Parish level, so you have one consistent regulation. Anybody that knows where I sat on Uber and Lyft, that's something that should be handled at the state level, as 44 other states did. I don't think the cabs are much different. I think what we're doing here, even just to charge an additional fee, I don't understand why we would be doing that. I don't understand why we have to impose any additional regulations, even on New Orleans cabs, than we currently have. Fact is, as I understood the explanation, if nothing is passed tonight, new, based on our current rules, if the city of Kenner wanted to go enforce the current regulations, then the cabs at the airport could be ticketed today for not having a Kenner CPNC, because we as a city, apparently, on the administration side for decades, have overlooked that requirement. So if the city chooses today to go on that enforcement, and then I would imagine the cabs at the city, the New Orleans CPNC taxi cabs would maybe go take a look at the city of New Orleans and say, hey, what can you do to help us here? I don't believe passing any of these tonight enhances our ability to grow regionally. It's certain, to me, it places additional burdens on an industry and makes it more difficult to do business in the city of Kenner. So I don't think it makes the best sense. As far as deferring it goes, I just don't know what a one meeting or even two meeting deferral is going to do. I think it needs to be voted down. I think it needs to be voted down, start back at the drawing board. If the city of New Orleans cares about regionalism, they'll step up to the plate. Councilman Segura, one thing about Councilman Segura is his commitment is relentless. And I mean that as a compliment, because he made a promise that he was going to represent, that he was going to fight for what he thought was best for the Kenner Cabs, and he's continued to do that, and I admire that. And there's no doubt he still will. If the city of New Orleans has a similar passion for the greater New Orleans area as a whole, and not just the city of New Orleans, that will be met with similar attitude and similar pursuit and desire. But I don't think we should be playing a leverage game of sorts. I don't think that's the best way to get to the end result that we want to get. I would think the city of New Orleans would have failed to have a legitimate answer as to why reciprocity can't be done. I agree, it should be done. It makes a lot of sense. Why be unfair to the Kenner Cabs? But is the solution to that to then add additional burdens on the New Orleans taxi cabs to make it more restrictive on them? I don't see how that makes sense. I don't see how that's the best way to go for the economic development, for the airport, and just the growth of the region as a whole. So unless something changes in the next couple of minutes, I can't support the current ordinance or any real amendments that are being proposed. It definitely appears to me, similar to some of the issues we ran into with the TNC legislation, just seems like the discussion's not just starting, not ending. And so I don't think a deferral for a meeting or two solves that problem. So to me, I think voting it down doesn't mean it's a bad idea. It just means maybe we're not ready to go forward with it. So that's going to be my position.
Thank you, Councilman. Sir, you have 30 seconds to wrap. Are you done?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
I didn't mean. I didn't.
No.
I'm sorry.
No,
He was in between. So are you finished?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Council.
Attorney Butterworth, are you still here? Did you get an opportunity to read that proposed amendment change? And we'd like to get you and your staff comments on it.
I wish I had a staff. But I like being addressed Attorney Butterworth. That's nice. So this amendment does alleviate a lot of concerns, I think, about operating the airport. It still would require all the Orleans taxis to come in, register of $250, which the airport doesn't have a position on, I think, but we want the people to know that any taxi seeking to operate at the airport that's not from Orleans Jefferson or not from Kenner would have to, and that's about 938 taxis. The one question I had was on the second page. There's a strike through on Louisiana in addition on Kenner. I didn't know if that was intentional, or I think to feel completely good about this, we would need the return to Louisiana.
Attorney Rapier, did you hear that, his comment? We haven't seen it, so you're going to have to comment on this question. Could you repeat that, Attorney Butterworth?
There's a requirement for an occupational license, and this may restate some of y'all's current law, I'm not sure, but it says...
current law.
Well, there's a strike through on Louisiana, which is current law, and it changes it to Kenner.
It is current law.
Kenner is current law or Louisiana?
Kenner is current law.
Okay, and I have what we passed in June here. I believe it says Louisiana.
It is current law as of the way the law stands at the moment.
Thank you. We have someone else wishing to address the council. Name and address, sir.
Jeffrey Anding, I'm with the New Orleans Convention and Visitors Bureau, 2020 St. Charles Avenue. Good evening, council members, Attorney Rapier. This has been a passionate issue, and I think some of the things I came to say have already been discussed. I appreciate you taking this up, and Councilman Segur's pushing this issue through. We believe in fairness for everybody. Frankly, if there's one thing I'd ask is to delay or to set this aside in hopes of more discussion with the city of New Orleans. Now, I know that's already been tried and perhaps not to the result that you had hoped, but that would be my suggestion and urge. Based on our hope to keep the 89,000 or so people in this city who are in the hospitality industry working. And that means people out to LaPlace, La Rose, right here in Kenner. We have members up and down Williams Boulevard, down Veterans, all the way around, and the Pontchartrain Center. We represent the entire city. And there's something along the lines of 30,000 hospitality employees in Jefferson Parish alone. So this isn't just Orleans Parish. Now, that said, and I think the attorney spoke to this already, part of my reason for being here tonight was that there was no indication of what the penalties might be if some of these things did not come to pass. That was some of our concern as we read the ordinances written. So having had that cleared up a bit, I would just like to say we appreciate the clarity, and still glad to be here this evening to see the proceedings. But again, our concern is to keep those people working. If there is not a policy or a plan in place for the permitting for the CPNC, if that's the way this is going to go in Kenner or otherwise, we wanted to make sure there wasn't an interruption of taxis from the airport or elsewhere that would damage, I think a couple people mentioned perception tonight. That is a big deal in my world. Perception, whether that's boil water advisories, whether that's flooding that can't be drained, whether that's hurricanes, all contribute to the perception of this destination to people who come here and spend millions of dollars in our hotels and our restaurants. Concern for you, concern for us, concern for the entire area. Councilman Impastato was talking about regionalism. We absolutely agree.
1 minute, sir.
We absolutely agree. We want to make sure that we are all at the table and that everybody has a voice. If we can help in that regard, we're here too. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So we're gonna have two more people talk on this subject, but after the attorney, to just to clear up some of his concerns about the proposed amendment, and if Attorney Butterworth, if you can address that,
Right.
and then
So the large rewrite ordinance that you all passed in June requires a Louisiana occupational license. What I think Mr. Rapier is referring to is that your current law, which would go into effect in 6 months or sooner, requires the Kenner occupational license. This amendment would revert, I guess, the past law back to Kenner.
It was when the Louisiana for the taxi cabs for the CPNC was a transposition and shouldn't have been in there. So it is correcting it back to what was intended. Is that for a CPNC in Kenner, that you have to have a Kenner occupational license.
Okay. Do you have to be a resident of Kenner or a domicile in Kenner or have a business front in Kenner to receive an occupational license in Kenner?
Just have to apply for it.
Okay.
thank you, sir.
I think this amendment, honestly, I give Councilmember Segur, Mr. Rapier a lot of credit. I think this amendment goes a long way. I think we'd like, if you feel the need to pass this tonight and put a time period on it with this amendment attached and say, we're going to do a 6-month thing or a 4-month thing or something to where we can, the taxis have the opportunity to come in and discuss this and other folks. I think that'd be fair. And and this would not, from my reading of this, bar anyone. They just have to come in and follow the rules. But I think what we were concerned about before is that they'd come in and have to move that headquarters. So, I think if you all feel the need to act tonight, I think everybody's spoken really smartly about this. And not having seen the amendment before 20 or 30 minutes ago, I didn't have the opportunity to review it. But I think, we always would ask for more time to review this type of thing. That's such a big deal to our region. But again, If you feel the need to act, let's put a reasonable time period on it that allows for implementation. On the TNC ordinance, we gave 6 months, I think, and suspended that. And if it's true, and I trust that it is, that an occupational license doesn't require any type of residency or domicile for a business or a person in Kenner, and that Neuron could come in and get a Kenner occupational license, then it's merely a $50 license that the taxis and other business owners will have to bear. So,
Thank you, Attorney. Mr. Leach, name and address.
Good evening, everybody. Tony Leggi. I represent the Jefferson Business Council as their executive director. My address is 4425 Clearview Parkway in Metairie. And I just wanted to go on record as saying we support your achieving the goal of equity. I think equity equals regionalism. I think it actually is beneficial to the airport that there are more cab services out there, particularly based upon the fact that we are hoping that it draws many, many tourists into our region and conventions into our region. We do support further discussion, and we would be happy to engage in any way that you would like us to in those discussions. And with that, leave it open if y'all have any questions of me.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Name and address.
Good evening, Violet Peters with the Jefferson Convention and Visitors Bureau, 1221 Elmwood Parkway in Harahan. And I want to thank you for this lengthy discussion, and want to first and foremost say that the protection of the visitor experience is what we want to support and make sure is protected. But we also encourage the open dialogue regarding regional cooperation, as Councilman Impostata said, and the regional cooperation in this area would hopefully provide a better visitor experience, and that's really what we want to encourage, is a better visitor experience for the betterment of, or the economic benefit of the entire region. So in addition to that, the ability for Jefferson Parish Vehicles for Hire, including hotel shuttles, to offer full-service transportation into New Orleans, it's been a matter of concern for many years. So we encourage this open dialogue, and we appreciate your careful support, and we want to welcome the ability to be a part of the discussion. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Councilman Klein, you have the floor, sir.
It's okay.
You good?
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm good.
Okay. Well, that was a robust conversation. Just to hear Attorney Butterworth and Attorney Rappy agree on one thing is enough for me right now. We can go home. But in any event, Councilman Segura, you have the floor because you were in transition with Attorney Butterworth, and if you want to acknowledge that, and we need to move forward with your amendments.
Thank you.
And then we'll go to Councilman Reno.
Okay. Well, where I was stopped was to file an amendment to remove the language that seemed to be causing some concern, which Mr. Butterworth, after reviewing, seems to have an understanding of acceptance that it will relieve that concern, and that there is also nothing in that or this amendment that would cause any harm to the New Orleans taxis from operating at the airport. We're just trying to find a path to get them registered here. So with that, Ed, based on events as they've been evolving within minute by minute over the last few days, because of some times that it takes to get communications, this amendment just came out probably 2 o'clock this afternoon. I had it for everybody who attended the agenda meetings to present, and Mr. Rapier to explain, so I certainly understand and apologize for the couple council members who didn't get it, but it was not for the lack of trying to get it to you. It was just, that's how fast it became on paper, and the method to get it to you was at agenda meetings that we had this afternoon, and I understand for your reasons or others, you didn't make it, so I didn't see either one of y'all until 5 o'clock.
Right, and to that, I'm just going to say that, we try to make some of those meetings when we can. I think, but it's not our, it's not always going to get there. I would like in the future, if we can at least give it to the Madam Clerk, who will then send it to us, then that way it takes you out of the loop of waiting for us or us going to the meeting for future.
No, I agree, but like I said, it was a timing thing. By the time we got it off the printer, we went straight into the 2:30 agenda meeting, and then the one that followed, and the Councilman Klein came in, and I stayed with him, and then we came here at 4 o'clock, or 4:30, and was participating in the mayor's prep meeting for this upcoming event over the weekend, and then at 5 o'clock, you started your meeting.
Right.
So
And I'm just saying, there has to be some vehicle to put into place to ensure that we get it. And if
Sure.
we do that, then all those other things can happen. We put that vehicle in place, and then that way, I'm not sure how many people have not seen it. I have not seen it, but at least we get some opportunity to view it. Thank you.
Okay, well, then at this point, I hope and believe that I'm putting forth this amendment for consideration. So I'd like to move.
Madam Clerk, this is where we are. We haven't motioned or second anything. Councilman Segura, he's good right now to put this amendment on the floor and for us to
Yes,
vote on that.
Yes, sir, I have the amendment. Do I have a second on the amendment tonight?
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Segura, second by Councilman Carroll. The amendment would be of the ordinance, Section 16-53, CP&C required. We would be deleting Section B in its entirety. The Section B reads, except for those entities that would qualify for a vehicle permit as provided for in Section 16-46B, in order to qualify to obtain a CP&C permit issued by the city, the person or entity that is applying for the CP&C shall maintain its headquarters within the city of Kenner. That wording would be deleted from the ordinance.
Thank you. On the amendment, motion by Councilman Segura, second by Councilman Carroll. Council, please vote. Aye.
Motion passes 7-0 on the amendment.
And Mr. Chairman, if I can also then, at this point, perhaps, in light of Mr. Duckworth's recommendation that we allow some time if we now move to vote on this and it was to pass, I would also put up a motion to put in a 6-month deferral of enforcement if we approve this tonight,
So this is the second amendment that you're proposing.
to try to accomplish what Mr. Duckworth has asked for, that if we put in this,
Butterworth?
cleared up the issue of,
Duckworth or Butterworth?
I'm sorry, Zach Butterworth. Sir. No offense, but backward. So that's my point is based on what we just heard, and even from others about allowing the dialogue, that by passing this as amended, hopefully with the second amendment too, with a delayed time, gives us time to continue the dialogue as whatever, hopefully within 6 months with the city of New Orleans, and then if need be, we would come back and change something.
Madam Clerk, have we framed that his second amendment, have we framed that, or I would prefer Attorney Rapier
Yes,
to frame that to make sure we get it correctly.
Before I frame it, I would like to remind the council that this will be attaching to the ordinance that you passed in June of this year, which already has a 6-month delay in it. You may be 3 months into that 6 months, but that ordinance still has 3 more months to run on the delay.
Well, then there's no need for a second motion then.
So that would preclude us.
That ordinance has a delay in it of up to 6 months or until the code department is ready to enforce it. Don't know where code is yet in the enforceability, so you may already have 2 to 3 months built in. It may come sooner if they are, and in which case you can at that point in time maybe tack a little more time on. But I'd be a little careful, a little hesitant, tacking extra time on right now because you already have a built-in delay.
Thank you. Councilman Segura, you
Yes,
in
I'm
agreement with that?
sorry, I agree with that, I forgot he reminded me that earlier when I thought of that, was that I don't want to delay the implementation of the TNC requirements to start registering them to do business in the city. And as soon as our code director tells us he's ready to go, that would be great to allow them to go to work legally. So, yeah, I don't, the other months that are there, we can deal with that. But I think the clearness is, we want to continue negotiation with the city, and we'll take whatever steps we have to continue that.
So before we go forward, Councilman Reyno, you also had mentioned verbiage as it related to a possible amendment. Are you comfortable now? Okay. So now this brings us back to the amendment to be able to, are we deferring it, or are we?
I would take it, if barring someone putting up a motion for deferral, we move to a vote as amended.
To vote as amended, yes. Is that your?
Another amendment on the table now.
No, I took that off.
No, he
You took it
removed
off. So I would like for it to be repeated, framed, whatever you want to call it, to make sure we all are on the same page. The amendment right now, we have the amendment in to.
We voted on the
scratch. We
amendment.
voted on that already. So now we on the 12A to vote as
amended.
amended.
Your motion was Councilmember Segura, seconded by Councilmember Wilmot.
Yes. So motion by Councilman Segura, second by Councilman Wilmot to vote on as amended. Council, please vote. Aye. Aye. Madam Clerk, could you do a
Roll call.
roll call, please? Thank you.
Division B, Councilman Wilmot.
Aye.
District 1, Councilman Carroll.
Yes.
District 2, Councilman Segura.
Yes.
District 3, Councilman Reyno. District 4, Councilman Klein.
Yes.
District 5, Councilman Impastato.
Nay.
Division A, Councilman DeFranchis.
Nay.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 4-3. Councilmembers Reyno, Impastato, and DeFranchis are opposed.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
You're welcome. Item 13 is resolutions and motions by council members. Item 13A is a resolution calling a public hearing to determine whether the structures located at 3821 Old Miss Drive in Kenner, Louisiana shall be abated by repair, rehabilitation, demolition, or removal.
Motion by Councilman Impastato, second by Councilman Reyno. Council, please vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 13B is a resolution appointing Michael Cenac and Rita Bizu to the City of Kenner Planning and Zoning Commission.
Motion by Councilman Segura, second by Councilwoman DeFranchis. There's a note on my paper about a possible amendment. Is
Yes,
that-
sir. I have an amendment tonight. If you would allow me to read it into the record, please. We will be amending the legislation tonight, changing the dates. The commencing date would be from September 22nd, 2016 to September 22nd, 2015, and to amend the expiration date from September 21st, 2020 to September 21st, 2021, and to add the District 3's appointment of Mr. Al Borg to the City of Kenner Planning and Zoning Commission.
On the amendment.
Yes, sir. On the amendment, please.
Motion by Councilman Reyno, second by Councilman Segura. On the amendment. Council, please vote.
Aye.
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 Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Back to your original motion. Council members.
Yeah, motion by Councilman Segura, second by Councilwoman DeFranchis. On the original legislation. Council, please vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 13C is a resolution temporarily suspending Council Rule Number 7 of the Rules of Organization, Business, Order, and Procedure of the Council of the City of Kenner and rescheduling the Kenner City Council meeting of January 4th, 2018 to January 11th, 2018, and rescheduling the Kenner City Council meeting of January 18th to January 25th, 2018.
Motion by Councilman Carroll, second by Councilman Wilmot. Council, please vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 13D is a resolution temporarily suspending Council Rule 7 of the Rules of Organization, Business, Order, and Procedure of the Council of the City of Kenner and rescheduling the Kenner City Council meeting of February 1st, 2018 to February 8th, 2018, and rescheduling the Kenner City Council meeting of February 15th to February 22nd, 2018.
Motion by Councilman Carroll, second by Councilman Segura. Council, please vote. Aye.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 13E is a resolution temporarily suspending Council Rule Number 7 of the Rules of Organization, Business, Order, and Procedure of the Council of the City of Kenner and rescheduling the Kenner City Council meeting of March 1st, 2018 to March 8th, 2018, and rescheduling the Kenner City Council meeting of March 15th, 2018 to March 22nd, 2018.
Motion by Councilman Carroll, second by Councilman Klein. Council, please vote. Aye.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 13F is a resolution temporarily suspending Council Rule Number 7 of the Rules of Organization, Business, Order, and Procedure of the Council of the City of Kenner and rescheduling the Kenner City Council meeting of July 5th, 2018 to July 12th, 2018, and rescheduling the Kenner City Council meeting of July 19th, 2018 to July 26th, 2018.
Motion by Councilman Carroll, second by Councilman Impastato. Council, please vote. Aye.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 13G is a resolution temporarily suspending Council Rule Number 7 of the Rules of Organization, Business, Order, and Procedure of the Council of the City of Kenner and rescheduling the Kenner City Council meeting of August 2nd, 2018 to August 9th, 2018, and rescheduling the Kenner City Council meeting of August 16th, 2018 to August 23rd, 2018.
Motion by Councilman Carroll, second by Councilwoman DeFranchis. Council, please vote. Aye.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 15 is acceptance, item 14 is items removed from the consent agenda. We have none. Item 15 is acceptance of contracts and similar matters approved by the mayor. Item 15A is summary ordinance number 12,294. An ordinance accepting the lowest responsive bid received from PCMG in the amount of $7,642.30 to furnish security cameras in accordance with telephone bid number T17-2524 for the Department of Parks and Recreation.
Motion by Councilman Reno, second by Councilman Klein. Council, please vote. Aye.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 15B is summary ordinance number 12,295. An ordinance accepting the lowest responsive bid received from UniFirst Corporation to lease uniforms for the Departments of Public Works, Fleet Management, and General Services on an as-needed basis in accordance with sealed bid number 17-6404 and an amount not to exceed $40,000 per year for the Department of Public Works.
Motion by Councilwoman DeFranchis, second by Councilman Segura. Council, please vote. Aye.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 15C is a resolution approving change order number 1, final to the contract with Max Foot Construction Company, LLC, dated July 16, 2015, regarding the City of Kenner wastewater treatment plant number 3, improvements for a decrease of $1,704 to the contract amount, resulting in a total contract amount of $16,556,296 with an addition of 94 calendar days to the contract time to accept the contract as complete for the Department of Public Works.
Motion by Councilman Impastato, second by Councilman Klein. Council, please vote.
Councilman.
Oh, sorry about that. Councilman Impastato, you have the floor, sir.
Mr. Shriner, could I ask you a question, please? This is for the wastewater treatment plant number 3,
Yes, that's correct.
commonly known like the sewer system, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Where is that? Let's just to clarify, that's the one at the end of Grand Lake subdivision?
Yes, just north of the interstate.
Okay. In Council District 5, right?
That's correct.
All right. I just wanted to make sure.
This one.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
That's all.
Motion by Councilman Impastato, second by Councilman Klein to accept. Council, please vote. Aye.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 16 is ordinances and resolutions in summary for first reading. Item 16A is a resolution amending Rule Number 22, Agenda Format of the Rules of Organization, Business, Order, and Procedures of the Council of the City of Kenner. Item 16B is an ordinance amending ordinance number 10,246 regarding film permitting process for the City of Kenner and related fees therefrom. Item 16C is an ordinance accepting the lowest responsive bid received from the Equipment Guy, LLC, to furnish and install new spring floor at Barbary Gym in accordance with sealed bid number 17-6404 and an amount not to exceed $18,790 for the Department of Parks and Recreation. Item 16D is an ordinance approving amendment number 2 and renewal number 3 to the agreement between the City of Kenner and the 3 Cs Property Incorporated, which extends the term through December 31st, 2018, and increases the not-to-exceed amount to $25,000 annually for the Department of Parks and Recreation. Item 16E is an ordinance authorizing a cooperative purchase agreement with Juan Parts Company doing business as Napa for the purchase of automotive parts on an as-needed basis in accordance with Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office bid number 17-AUG-2301 in an amount not to exceed $150,000 annually for the Department of Fleet Management. Item 16F is an ordinance approving the utilization of Jefferson Parish Contract Number 55-16631 with Traffic Solutions Incorporated for guardrail maintenance on an as-needed basis in an amount not to exceed $50,000 annually for the Department of Public Works. Item 16G is an ordinance accepting the lowest responsive bid from Barrier Construction Company, LLC, received September 13, 2017 by the Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development, DOTD, in an amount of $6,088,417.01 for the New Orleans Airport Connector Road, State Project Number H.011276, Kenner Public Works Project Number 2014-003A-RB for the Department of Public Works. Item 16H is an ordinance approving an agreement with Richard C. Lambert Consultants, LLC for construction, engineering, and inspection-related services for the New Orleans Airport Connector Road, State Project Number H.011276 and H.011794, Federal Aid Project Number H.011276 and H.011794, Kenner Public Works Project Number 2014-003-A-RB in an amount not to exceed $530,434 for the Department of Public Works. Item 16I is an ordinance amending the Kenner Code of Ordinances, Article 2, Section 15-23 and 15-18 pertaining to traffic controls around Chateau Estates Elementary School. Item 17 is reports from the council and our special committees.
Councilman Impastato, you have the floor, sir.
First, I wanted to make sure everyone was aware that one of the things we approved tonight was a resolution concerning the Divine Mercy Fair, which is next weekend, the 13th, 14th, and 15th at Divine Mercy. Some people call it St. Elizabeth, but on the church site, their annual fair. I think the Seafood Festival, they call it. It's always a great time, well attended. Everybody come out Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. They always have good bands, good music. The other thing is we received notice from the mayor and Mr. Bob Ross of a grant that was awarded from in District 5 for some construction in District 5 on a program that's pretty significant and a really positive development, additional resources and infrastructure improvements that are coming to District 5. We've asked Mr. Mike Ince, who was instrumental in getting that taken care of, if you could give us just a, not belabor it, but I think it's pretty exciting news for us in District 5, and kind of explain what's going on with the sidewalk, Safe Sidewalks program that we've now obtained a substantial grant for.
Yes, we're very lucky to have received 2 grants for that intersection of Loyola and Vintage by Kenner City Park. It's actually 2 grants under one agreement with DOTD for a total of $551,000. You're going to get improvements to Kenner City Park, so all of City Park will have surrounding sidewalks which will connect the neighborhood to the park. You'll also have pedestrian improvements to the intersection, so ADA compliance will be made at that intersection, and you will also have sidewalks from Loyola to from Loyola to West Loyola on the north side of Vintage, and improvements to West Loyola's intersection as well. So what we're looking to do is tying in City Park to the neighborhood, as well as potential schools that are in that area as well, so we can improve our connectivity. But we may have some money in the future going towards that area as well, but $551,000 is definitely a significant improvement for that.
And the next phase is another $350,000, right?
Correct, and that's all 100% federal share, cost reimbursable.
So about $1 million of improvements that the city will actually bear no expense at the end of the day.
Correct, and we will actually be having bicycle pedestrian training seminars going on at Kenner City Park as well, coming up within the next year as a part of the Safe Routes to School grant. So it's not just infrastructure; it's got non-infrastructure in it as well, which will do a lot of good as far as motorists interacting with pedestrians crossing that intersection.
When did this program start?
The Safe Routes to School or Safe Routes to Public Places?
Well, let's say I'm
Safe
lumping
routes-
them together. But
Safe Routes to School, we've received our first, I believe, grant in 2013 for that. It had some hangups on it, so DOTD actually worked to try and mitigate some of those issues. They wanted to open it up to more schools instead of just elementary schools. But in relation to that program, they created the Safe Routes to Public Places program so that it would take away some of those issues and open it more up to public places, meaning what I was discussing earlier of the connectivity portions of it and not just training situations or just sidewalks. And trying to put more ADA compliance to those intersections is what it's really meant to do.
well, thank you and thank the mayor for y'all's leadership in getting this for the benefit of the constituents in District 5. So these are huge improvements to the Kenner City Park, to that whole corridor. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Dance. Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Segura, you have the floor.
I think the mayor's.
Oh, okay, I didn't. Mayor Zahn, you have the floor.
And thank you, Councilman Impastato. Just for the record, you know, with so many discrepancies out there lately, and it seems to just be in District 5, just tonight, the things that we're talking about are close to $18 million improvements in District 5. So I appreciate the work that you've done in that district, past administrations like Councilman Segura, when he was Mayor Segura, making sure skate park, dog park, and just the things tonight, not even added to that, the things tonight are close to 18 million. So just for the record, that's impressive. Thank you, Councilman Impastato.
Thank you. Councilman Segura, you have the floor.
Well, thank you. Actually, Chief still here? Chief, you want to talk about an event you have coming up in a week? National Night Out?
Surprised you yielded the floor, man.
Hey, always to the chief. Hail to the chief.
Exactly.
Hail to the chief.
Not this Sunday, but next Sunday, the 15th of October, is our kickoff party for National Night Out Against Crime, which is the following Tuesday. Due to the development of Lake Town the last couple of years, we've moved it to Lafreniere Park. So this year, it will be again in Lafreniere Park, and we have actually the largest participation of area law enforcement that we've ever had. We have pretty much all from Ascension Parish down to Plaquemine Parish. Most all parishes and agencies are going to participate, showing off some of their equipment, demonstrations, have some entertainment, and it's open and free to the public, where anyone can come and talk. If you want to know a little bit more about law enforcement, how and why we do things, this is your opportunity. And to the citizens of Kenner, if you have a block party or sit out or something on Tuesday for National Night Out Against Crime, please let the police department know. You can call my office at 712-2212, and we will make sure we stop by and visit your block party or cook out or sit out. Was that enough?
No, I thought you were going to go more. I mean, I'm.
Thank you,
all I have.
Chief.
Thanks.
Are you finished, Councilman Segura?
I yield to him whatever time he needed.
Okay. Councilwoman DeFranchise, you have the floor.
Thank you, Council President. First of all, I want to thank the mayor and especially our police chief for going to Chateau Estates Elementary School. They have had multiple problems with traffic, and some of them have also gotten out of hand in the past. And I especially want to thank the chief, because he is the one who actually came up with a draft that I think has a lot of potential in addressing those problems. And although it's on first reading, it's based on the recommendations of the chief, as well as his commitment to be out there with his officers initially to help enforce it, so people are used to the new rules that will be in place. I think you may be out there personally, because I know his commitment to making sure that problems no longer exist in the city. But I know, I'm serious. I really thank you for being out there, and I thank you for your input. I think they were great suggestions, and I think they are going to make a difference. I want to also tell the public, though, nothing is 100%. This is going to improve it. It's going to make it better, but there are no ordinance that can address every possible situation, but it's a good start, and I think it's going to be a positive, make a positive difference for the area around Chateau Elementary. So thank you to the mayor and to the chief for their input.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Klein, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. Chateau Elementary School is in my district, and I've met with the chief, I met with several residents, I met with Maria DeFrancis on what are some of the solutions. It's been an ongoing problem, but now we have some new solutions for it, so hopefully these solutions will work better. Over the years, since the Hurricane Katrina, Chateau Elementary School has increased, both in the grades they service and also the students that go to the school. So the traffic conditions are more serious now than they were a few years ago. So we're doing everything we can do as a council, and the mayor's office is helping also. I met with the mayor on it also. So we're trying to find solutions, and these solutions may work better than in the past. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Wilmot, you have the floor.
Thank you. I just want to mention, we had an issue the last council meeting and the meeting before regarding Minden Street with 18-wheelers going down it. And I know I've been working with the mayor's office as well as Councilman Carroll on the issue. We actually went out there to the site, met DOTD. They came up with some diagrams and placed new signage. And it's very obvious they shouldn't turn down this street. However, I understand that there was an issue just recently where another 18-wheeler went down that street. So we're looking at the issue, whether or not it could be a GPS guidance problem. So we're going to go ahead and try and come up with a solution dealing with that. Hopefully that's the issue, or we don't have any more. There might have just been one more truck driver, but every time they go down those streets, or most of the times, they're harming things. And they don't intend to, but once they get into that neighborhood, there's no way to get back out, and they're taking down power lines and cable lines and that type of thing. So we're working feverishly to try and figure out a solution, so please bear with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman DeFrances, to close out
I
on your...
apologize. I was remiss in thanking certain people that I think it's imperative I do so. First of all, Colleen Winkler, who is the principal there, and her administration. The neighborhood was very gracious in working with us. But there's one more person that needs to be thanked, and that's Jimmy Dennis. We made a commitment to the people of the neighborhood would put up signs, and he immediately did it. They're already out there, and I apologize for not thanking you also in my earlier comment, but thank you for doing that and getting on top of it immediately.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Segura, you had one more thing to say?
Yes, thank y'all, since y'all insist. No, in a serious note, I first wanted to comment that prior to the start of this meeting, we all attended the mayor's prep meeting with his staff for this weekend's event, whether it's a tropical storm hurricane that is coming toward us. Just want to ensure the city, I see he's going, yeah, I should have said something. Okay. So if you want to speak on it. We were supposed to do that, but see? Oh, okay, thank you. So again, I just want to let y'all know that the mayor and his staff had a very productive meeting this afternoon, going over the plans and who does what and getting us ready. So just assure that, you know, our city is in good shape. I'm sure he's got all the drains cleaned by now, so we won't have that problem. And then just want to remind citizens, we've gone a long time now before we've had some kind of real event coming toward us. And this looks like it may be the time that we do have something. So please pay attention tomorrow. Tomorrow is your day to make preparations, monitor the TVs and radios to see exactly where it may wind up. But it looks like we're going to get some effect, whether it comes straight over us or not. So please take that time tomorrow, make your preparations, and heed the warnings. At this point, I think we're hoping it's only maybe going to be a weak Category 1, but let's not put our guard down. It can change. So let's be safe and keep that in mind, that we want to make sure everyone remains safe for this event. Thank you.
Mayor Zine, did you just put this up? Or?
Yeah,
Okay.
I did.
All right.
And I appreciate Councilman Segura doing that, because we were supposed to talk about that in the beginning of the meeting. Speaking about Jimmy Dennis again, I had asked Ashley around, I guess, 7-something this morning when I woke up and saw some things on TV. I sent a message out to Deborah Foshee and Chris Fortunata, and Jimmy Dennis received that from Deborah Foshee about cleaning the drains, and he had already started on that. He had already stopped doing the things we need in the city, but pulled him back for it's not very important right this moment, and put him on cleaning the drains. So we were already out there early this morning because of Jimmy Dennis. We will continue to do those things. I believe we'll meet again tomorrow morning. I'll let the council know after we talk to the parish and find out what their direction is, what we need to do. We will stay in touch, as I told the council earlier this evening in these chambers before we open the chambers up to everybody else, is that we will be in touch with everyone. But Doug Dote, our Emergency Operations Director, has already taken the bull by the horns, and he is absolutely positively moving forward with it. We will be in touch with the Kenner Police Department, with our chief and our fire chief, and also you all, and we hope for the best. So thank you, Councilman, for reminding us to say from the administration we're on board and those drains are clean. They'll probably be finished by tomorrow morning.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to, this is for Mr. Maricole, and you don't have to come up. I want to thank you for some of the support that we're getting for a couple of our tot lots, but I've sent you a couple of emails asking for the status. I know once you and I talk about it, it's fine, but I need that documentation when I meet with other groups to show them. So tomorrow, if you get an opportunity, send me that status of those projects, and I would appreciate that. I don't see any more lights. Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. Item 18 is new business. We have none. Item 19 is unfinished business and/or motions to reconsider or remove from a tabled position. We have none. Item 20 is persons wishing to address the council on special subject matters.
Name and address, sir.
Al Morella, 4260 East Loyola Drive, 5th District, 45 years. First, I want to thank you, Councilman Reyno, for getting me that information I requested at the last meeting concerning the Pontchartrain Center. Now, I know the significance of that building as it relates to the hotel motel taxes that the city of Kenner receives because we have that venue. But I'm concerned that the subsidy last year was $2,185,000. This year, it was $2,165,000. That's what the figures were on the paper, on the information you gave me, Councilman Reyno. Is that correct?
You didn't look at the revenues.
No, it wasn't.
That's not correct?
No, I don't think it was $2 million, Mr. Morello.
You have to look at the revenues to offset that out.
Okay, well,
I would yield that to,
correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I looked at it wrong.
I don't have the numbers right in front of me. Do we have somebody from finance that can?
Yeah, I don't, yes, what's the net? Ms. Morrell, the net is going to be what we pay minus what we receive. So I can get that information for you and send that to you. Is that all right?
That's fine.
Okay, so
Yeah,
I think
I'd like
the
to
number
be-
you're talking about is the overall cost, but it doesn't take into account the money we actually received from using it for special events and the people who pay for that. So the number's going to be smaller. It's still there, though. You're right, we do subsidize it, but not
Oh, I know
that
we
much.
do.
Okay.
I know we do. Well, I'm glad you corrected me on that, Ms. Foshee. I'll look for the correct figures at the next meeting. But thank you again anyway, Keith. I appreciate it. Okay, the second thing, I want to direct this to Councilman Wilmot. You talked about the problems on Minden Street from the last council meeting, but I would like to know now an article in the Times-Picayune on the 22nd of September about the accident we had on the private property. The police department couldn't issue no citations on private property, but they said they was going to investigate it further. But I'd like to know, a young man, second day on the job, was occupying a portal that in a dump truck backed into him, and he's injured. He was injured, suffered some severe injuries that's probably going to plague him for the rest of his life. Now, I would like to know, since it happened in the city of Kenner, have we reached out to try to talk to OSHA and bring OSHA in here to try to find out as to what happened And as far as this dump truck driver, was did he have to undergo any kind of random drug test, any kind of drug testing for what happened? Can anybody answer that for me? You, Councilman Wilmot, preferably.
I don't know those specific details on it. I do know that the fellow was injured, and it was a horrible injury that he sustained. And it was on airport property when, I think, dealing with the construction of the new terminal area. And I believe, and I don't know this for sure, if KPD investigated or not. I don't know if you have any information on that, Chief? We did. Okay. That's, I guess the chief would be the person to direct those issues.
Okay. All right. Chief?
Yeah, the Kenner Police investigated it as a private property crash. So.
Okay. But that's as far as it went. No one from the city looked into it as far as this company is concerned with this dump truck driver. I mean, it happened in our city. So I would think that somebody, you know, at City Hall would took the initiative to look into it and to find out if OSHA was going to come in here or somebody was going to come in here and try to find out what happened and hold somebody accountable for what happened here. That's why I'm asking this question. Now, I understand the police department went as far as they could go with it. But now I'm asking the city if anybody took the initiative to look into this on part of the city. It happened in our city.
Mr. Morella, I don't know that the city would have any jurisdiction or any responsibility to investigate something that happened on private airport property. Beyond it being a police investigation, the city would have no authority over OSHA requirements that are, it's a civil issue between, you know, the contractor and the injured party and the airport. So the city has no responsibility for that.
Okay, thank you, young lady. Now, third thing.
30 seconds, Mr. Morella.
Okay, third thing I want to talk about, can anybody tell us about the movie production on the 25th of September? Part of it was shot by the Chateau Coffee House on the south side of West Esplanade. And I understand that the Chateau, I understand that the Esplanade Mall used the staging area in their parking lot for the equipment. So if anybody can tell me what the economic impact was for the owners of the mall, and I'll direct this to code enforcement real quick. I know it was on private property, but don't they have to have permits and don't they have to have occupational licenses to do this even on private property? And if so, what was the economic impact for the city?
Mr. Morella, you're into the land yap
Okay,
area
that's
right
good.
now.
Now they can answer. Thank you.
You know, so we're going to give you an answer, but.
That's fine.
Okay.
I got 3 minutes at the next meeting, Councilman Carroll, to respond. Either way you want to do it's fine with me, man.
We'll do it that way, like we always do. If there's an answer to Mr. Morella's question, Mayor Zahn, please.
Mr. Morella, you probably like this answer. If you look on the first reading, we actually have something put on there about getting the permits and getting that more under control. So that should be voted on by the next council meeting. We were very involved in the Esplanade Mall situation after we found out from those restaurants right there, because I totally agree with you. We got calls from Copeland's, we got calls from, I believe, Zia's or Olive Garden, one of the two, because the mall had actually taken over those parking spots. That's an issue because that's shared parking. So I was actually out there with, I think Mr. Walter was out of town, so I was actually out there with his assistant director, one of Chief Glazer's policemen, and also the code liaison from the police department, till about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, going back and forth with him. We finally got that solved, because at that point, not that your request is not important, but the most important thing that night was to make sure, that was a Friday night, to make sure that parking opened up all the weekend and that they understood that they couldn't rope it off. Through discussions throughout the night, they understood that they could not do that. More and more reason why, when you come here and we put that on the agenda, why we got to get some control over that. We need to get some revenue from it. We need to make sure that those independent businesses, a little bit different with Esplanade Mall because of that shared parking, but all businesses are giving something back to the city of Kenner because, exactly, we do have probably the inconvenience of it. At the same time, like I said at the mayor conference today, we want to attract as much of that, and I'll call it tourism, as we can, that industry, business, to make sure that people know Kenner is inviting, but at the same time, we can't affect our constituents. So I think you'll be happy with what we're putting on. This has been a work in progress. I've listened to you come here, and I haven't said much about it, but for the last 10 months, we've been looking at this. I looked at this before the election because I think it's something we need to do. But we don't want this to go out that we don't want to be Hollywood friendly, because I do. I do want to be Hollywood friendly because I want to attract the money. I want the money for the city of Kenner because it helps reduce some of our other costs. But at the same time, we've got to get a little control on it. And I think if you stay tuned, you'll be very happy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Make a comment,
That-
too?
Yes, Councilman
And besides that,
DeFrances.
Mayor, we have our carpenters who then are involved. We have our electricians who are involved. We have food services that, they hire food services from Kenner in the area because it's so much easier to provide food that way. And our businesses are compensated as well as some of the homes in the area. So that all brings in revenue, total revenue. It's not just one part, but you have to add all of these little parts together to understand the total impact. But like the mayor said, we have worked very hard in the past to have regulations, and we're looking at what new regulations might need to be put in place. So everyone's working together on that, and there is another movie coming too in this area.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Mr. Teff, name and address, sir.
Greg Taft, live at 3720 West Loyola Drive in Kenner. I have just a couple questions. Councilman Klein, are the public meeting dates for the boats still set for the 1st and the 9th? So those are good dates?
You're asking him or me?
Both of them?
Okay. Yes, they're still the
Okay.
correct date.
So that's good, all right. Then the other thing I'm gonna, and it's only because I'm curious, I don't know who to ask this to, whether it be the mayor, so if y'all just bear with me. Who, the employees that are in the administrative group, who are they responsible for as far as if their job and their job performance and that have access to documents? Who would they be, who would have the authority, or who would be responsible for the actions of that employee?
You're talking about executive staff?
Executives or the administrator, that probably reports to the mayor's office. Now, I wouldn't say that serves you, but an employee that, yeah, maybe the administrative staff will answer my question.
I'm gonna let legal answer some of that too, but everyone answers to the CEO except obviously the police chief and the legal department. Am I leaving anybody out? Myself. And the fire chief. But legal, you want to take a little bit more detail of that? Is that what you're?
Yeah, that's what I was.
You're asking who reports to whom?
Well, no. What I'm alluding to is, and the reason I wanted to know is because I'm a little bit concerned on the way the boat ordinance was vetted. And there was some things that took place. When you go into the history of when it came out of zoning and planning, that information disappeared, which meant that it had to be something from inside.
So let me just clear it up for the general public. Not that I'm trying to pass the buck, but that predates us.
No, I'm not. I understand it. No. I'm asking a
know
question.
exactly
I'm
what that is.
asking only because I'm trying to, I know it doesn't affect the current staff, but it doesn't, but there is some staff
Corrected.
that was around at the time, and I'm trying to get to the bottom of how, when an ordinance or when something is being formulated, like the UDC was, and when something goes to zoning and planning, how can that something on a final just kind of zap out or disappear? Because I'm trying to, in my mind, who would have that?
It does not just cop out. There's a process, and what you're talking about, I think, is the adoption of the UDC, the Unified.
That pertain to the boat because I know that zoning.
The boat ordinance is not a standalone ordinance. It is part of a UDC, which
Right.
is, I think, hundreds of pages long, and was, it went through a process through the planning department, through, I think, years of basically research and development, and there were public hearings regarding the adoption of the UDC. The boat ordinance is just one singular part of a 100-page document, and it's basically a comprehensive zoning ordinance that the city's governed under. So the processes are that there are public hearings through the Planning and Zoning Commission. There were neighborhood meetings. Mr. Abez can address this better than me. But then all of that happens, sir, before it gets to this council for adoption.
Well, I guess, let me kind of do it this way. Something was input into like an exemption or a grandfathering type of clause. But that grandfathering clause, when it got passed or on the final vote, it just kind of just disappeared. Like somebody within the administration had to have the power because nobody even knew that changed. And I'm just trying to figure out who would have that, who would be in a position to make that type of change.
Can you be clear with regards to what disappeared? I was very much involved with this.
There was a clause in there that was made by Councilwoman DeFrancis that grandfathered a boat, that an existed owner of a boat would be grandfathered in when for the boat parking section.
That clause was, there was no.
No, let me explain what he's talking about. Mr. Taft, would you mind? I think I can clarify it a little bit.
Well, you know more than I know, so.
What happened was this, we have to go back a little bit, and I'm not going to drag it out, but when originally Chateau had problems with boats, and we had proposed that, those people in those parts of the city that had boats but couldn't put them behind the property line, that they would be allowed to keep them for a certain amount of time, and Chateau was in favor of it. Then the administration, and not this administration, had a committee put in place to look at not just the boat issue, but a myriad of issues that ended up that became part of the UDC. What Mr. Taft is talking about, at least 2 members of that commission, that committee, whatever terminology you would like to use, have stated, and I'm not going to name them publicly, have stated that what they voted upon and what did pass at that committee somehow was not what reached planning. They had that clause in there that that boats would have to be put behind the property line in those areas where it was possible, but if there were areas where that was not possible, they would, nobody likes the word grandfathered in, but they would be. That was not Maria DeFrancis's, though. That was a proposal from way back then that they chose to take some of that language and pass it as part of that committee's recommendations. What they're saying is, 2 members of that committee, that those recommendations evidently never reached planning because they don't know how, because that was not what the committee had voted upon and had agreed to be part of the recommendations that were going to be forwarded. So that's what Mr. Taft is talking about.
So that was the Code Advisory Committee, correct?
Yes.
Right, and they were a Code Enforcement Advisory Committee. I don't believe that they were in a committee that was formed to look at the provisions of the UDC. So I think we've talked about this, Councilwoman DeFrancis, that.
But our understanding was that their recommendations would be forwarded to planning to include, because there were some issues that
Right,
planning
and I don't
had
know,
to address.
I don't know that that happened, is what I'm trying to say.
That may not have,
Right.
and that's what Mr.
I
Taft's
mean,
talking about.
Right.
That they were told.
And maybe they did, and they, planning and their experts.
We're not blaming planning, please, Mr.
Decided
Abrams,
not
please,
to
that had nothing to do
adopt
with
them,
it. It was a matter of whether, their questioning is, that committee was put in place to come up with recommendations that would be forwarded, okay? And part of what went into the UDC were some of the ideas that they had explored and discussed and thought they should need to address. I have no clue how those recommendations were forwarded or not forwarded, and I was very honest to say that. All I could tell you was that 2 members of the committee indicated, and they're two very reliable people, very forthright, very intelligent people, that what passed at that committee, when the final draft was put together of their recommendations,
Right.
was not what ended up. So the question became, what happened to those? Why were they ignored? I guess would that be correct, Mr. Taft?
That's absolutely correct.
Mr.
I
Taft,
thought I could clarify a little bit the situation that he's asking.
thank you, Councilwoman. Mayor Zahn, you have the floor.
I guess what would clear it up is, because again, this predates me, and I think probably only the three of you all were on that council when that committee was formed, correct? Because it goes back before 4 years.
It goes back.
So did the count, what's that?
That committee was there before me.
Before you? All right, so was that formed by the council, or was that formed by the administration at the time?
Actually, the administration formed the committee, and council members were allowed to have one person on that committee apiece. And then the administration, I believe, had 3 members.
So there must be some.
And the administration picked, I think, forgive me, it's been a long time. I believe the administration may also have chosen who would be chairman of the committee. But I
Right,
know
so-
that the
so
administration had more input.
I guess we need to do a better job of getting an answer, y'all and us, from Mr. Teff for the next council meeting. Maybe Ms. Broussel has it, because however it was set up is determined what that committee actually presented to the council, to the administration, to be where we are now, to answer your questions. I think that's what we're getting.
The
Ms.
committee,
Broussel.
Councilwoman, the committee was made up of several members, 2 of which apparently proposed what you're talking about, what Mr. Teft is talking about with the grandfathering. But I don't think that it passed. What Mr. Aber and I just discussed was what was put in the UDC regarding boats was what that committee adopted, what that committee wanted.
What
So
he adopted was they all agreed that they had adopted that as part of one of the recommendations. And these are, I'll tell you afterward who these people are, so you'll understand.
that's not what I'm being told by the planning director who attended those meetings. I think that they adopted the version that,
When they voted, Jay?
Wasn't Debbie Satoon on that?
Hold on, Councilman.
she absolutely was, Councilman Impastato, yes.
I know Debbie Satoon was on that.
I mean, something tells me Debbie Satoon's going to know.
Councilwoman DeFrances, are you
I'm finished.
But
finished?
what I was trying to say, though, Council Chairman, was it's whatever this council or that council, I don't know which one it was, adopted is what you have. So if nothing was amended at that time, that's why you got what you basically have at this point. So I hope that answers your question.
No, I'm just.
Mr.
because
Teff, could you hold on, let
it's just
Councilman Reno,
concern-
Mr. Teff, I'm getting an opportunity. Councilman Reno has something maybe.
I just have one question for Mr. Abear. I'm gonna make this simple. Was anything on the boat ordinance, was when you were drafting, or y'all were putting together the UDC, was there ever anything in that UDC that talked about grandfathering?
No, sir. What was adopted as part of the boat regulations, the storage of boat regulations, was actually supported by that Kenner Advisory Code Committee.
Okay, that's what I remember too.
That
But
draft was actually presented to us, or to the University of New Orleans.
some other people at some of these meetings said that it was in there, but to my knowledge, it never was in there. But I didn't want to argue with them because I didn't know. I didn't want to debate that issue, but I didn't remember it ever being in there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilman Impastato, did you have a comment on this question?
No, I was just, I think what Councilman Reno said is, it was never in there. There was nothing ever in there to vanish. All I was suggesting is, rather than going around, Debbie Satoon and her background, I can assure you, as detail-oriented as she is, would be able to tell us if something were ever put in there, and she was kind of, wasn't she the chairman, Jay? So I think rather than hypothesizing, if in fact, there was something proposed that didn't get in there, which is inconceivable, because there would be record of that, public record of those meetings and what was proposed. Trust me, Debbie's going to know better than anyone. And we know exactly what was adopted is exactly what was approved by that committee, and there was no vanishing or telekinetic transfer or anything like that of the.
The only thing that I'd like to comment on that is that 2 people from Chateau, when we had the meeting for the boats at Chateau, one of them served on the committee told me, because I wanted to confirm before I brought it out tonight, that there was such a thing. I did that on purpose. And he confirmed that that was in it, and they don't know why it was changed. Now,
Mr. Teff, Councilman Klein has some input before. I want to get you your minute
All I
and 30
was getting
seconds.
is, I'm just suggesting we talk to the chairman of the committee.
All right, good. Councilman Klein, you want to?
A committee was set up that was totally 100% independent of the council. We did not talk to the members of the committee, we were not allowed to talk to the members of the committee. They totally decided that on their own. I don't really know what was in it, but I would assume that Judge Constitution said no changes, probably no changes. Is that correct?
I'm just saying, let's talk to her if we want to find out. You know?
To meet with them or discuss anything with them or try to influence them in any way. Is that all?
okay.
All right, Mr. Teff, you can wrap it up. Give you a minute to wrap up your.
The only thing I want to ask is that, I've been to all these meetings at the civic associations, and there was maybe 3 or 4 people that did not want boats, and the rest of them didn't seem to have a problem with the boats. And that creates the smoke that says, well, really, was it vetted right, or was it vetted with just the select people that were against the boats? I'm just trying to get to the bottom of it, because with all these meetings, you would think somebody, a group would come up and say, we don't want these boats here, and that's not what they were saying. And so I'm trying to understand how this even came about in the first place, because we're vetting this thing better now than we probably did when we first got it passed. I mean, y'all have done a thorough job, and you got 2 more meetings. The only thing I'm going to ask is this. We understand there's 2 more meetings, and we respect that. But we're also asking that after those 2 meetings, if it does come about that there's not that many people that are against or have objections with the boats, that this council takes it upon themselves to get the boat ordinance changed by one of the 3 or 4, or whatever proposals that is recommended, that we do that within the council meeting after the last public meeting, which would mean which should be
30
in
seconds, Mr.
November,
Teff. 30 seconds.
maybe in December. That's all, and
Is
I'm
it?
done.
Thank you, sir.
Greg, if I can, one moment.
Councilman Segura, you have the floor.
Just to respond to that I agree that what he said should be, and I think with the committee meetings we've individually, maybe I have conveyed to people that I would expect at the November 1st, citywide public meeting, as well as the one on the 9th, that we have some form of words on paper in a draft proposal, whatever terminology is best, to have whoever shows up give us additional input. But bear in mind, sir, you are not the only one that communicates with us on this issue. It may not be in that format that you are sitting through. We get contacts, I know I do, personally, from seeing people on the street. I get phone calls. So just because they don't show up to the meeting that you're at and say what you expect them to say doesn't mean they're not saying it.
Then what you're saying, and let's be clear, what you're saying is, when you vetted it the first time, y'all handpicked the people.
Never said that, sir. That's your hypothesis.
All right, let's.
Mr. Teff, you can talk to him after the meeting if you want to.
I'm sorry,
I got you.
Okay.
Yes.
We need to have some decorum of the.
We got it, Councilwoman. Yeah, but Mr. Teff, thank you. Mr. Harrison Curbtree? Mr. Ron Pradit. Name and address, Mr. Pradit.
Ron Pradat, 960 Tavel Drive, District 4, for 34 years. I'm here to ask this council if they would consider passing an ordinance or putting into law an ordinance for blocking a private residence driveway.
It's already criminal law. It's already traffic law.
Sir, I don't think that is against the law, as we speak here today, as you ask it
Well,
today.
when you're a prisoner in your home, you can't get in and out your driveway. It's in relation to the Chateau Estates School. With all the traffic, what it does is where my home is located, traffic piles up bumper to bumper, and they cannot move to let you in or out of your driveway. And I've asked them before not to park in the driveway. Now they have signs. It's,
Yeah, I know it's frustrating. If somebody's blocking your driveway, you cannot block someone's driveway. It's against the law to do that. And it's something I'm sure that happens because of the situation with the school, and I'm sure they're working on that situation. If it does happen, then you obviously should call the police department if someone is stationary in your driveway where you cannot get out.
correct. I've done that in the past and nothing happens.
Can I?
By the time the
Yes.
police get there, either the traffic's gone or everyone's moved on.
But just to answer your question, that is against the law, and I would, I don't know how to answer that other than saying to call the police department if someone does that, or to tell them to please get out of your driveway and to be able to do it like that. And I think that's for all of us to be able to address if someone parks in our driveway.
And I also would like to thank Mr. Francis, Chief Glazer, Jimmy Dennis, Mayor Zahn, for their diligent efforts to get the traffic under control. And I commend them for it.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank
the
you, sir.
opportunity to address this council.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for coming in. That is an ongoing issue that we are dealing with. Ms. Patricia Davis. Name and address.
You just said it. Patricia Davis, 3126 Ohio Street. I'm coming tonight first of all, I would like to thank Mr. Wilmot and Mr. Dent and the CarMax representative for coming out to our monthly meeting to go over the situation with CarMax, the breaking of the ground. One of my concerns right now is 30th Street in Akron. For the past 6 months, there's been a barricade at 30th and Akron Street that's been petitioned there to block a hole that's there. We've been dealing with Code and Public Works in reference to that, and we haven't had a resolution on that. We contacted the Jefferson Parish. We contacted our councilman at Mark Spears' office on Tuesday, and Mark Spears' office sent someone out, Mr. Sal, out to investigate that. Kenner was stating that that was a Jefferson Parish issue, but it's a Kenner problem. So what Jefferson Parish did, they said they checked the location and found a washout on the south side of the road by the canal and the drain pipe running directly underneath. That area has been overlaid before, but apparently that's not the issue. Someone needs to come out to make sure that that issue is resolved. That road is heavily used because you do have the SAM patrons coming through there, and then you have other people coming off Loyola coming through there to get out to Williams. So that issue needs to be addressed, and we're not looking for it to be overlaid again, okay? The second issue is, here we are again, the off-street parking and loading regulations. Mr. Hebert, You know, I've been dealing with this since what? 2007? A long time. We've been dealing with that. You all said once the UNO study was done, we will resolve the issue. That's done. 10 years later, we're still having the same issue. School buses? Yes. Okay, that needs to be addressed. There's no other area that has school buses in their district. Jefferson Parish is one of the only parishes in this area that's owner-operated, which means that those people own their buses and maintain their buses. Those buses are only contracted by the school board on a yearly basis. So therefore, that's considered a commercial vehicle. So with that being said, we've had our fill of coming up here constantly talking about the same issues. So we need you all to address that. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. And to the first one that you said about the 30th Street in Akron, you said that it was confirmed by the parish that it is not a water issue. It is a Kenner drainage or Kenner infrastructure.
He said, Mr. Sal said when they checked the location, they found a washout of the south side of the roadway by the canal and a drain pipe running directly underneath it. So therefore, it's not just a pothole. It's not just a pothole. So that issue needs to be addressed because that area, that barricade has been there 6 months, which means that the oncoming traffic has to stop so that the other traffic can pass.
Okay, I'll
Then when it rains, it's because that area floods right there. So we need that issue resolved as well.
We will.
6 months, for 6 months, that barricade has been there, and no one has, we've called Public Works on many occasions. So that needs to be addressed.
We will definitely look into that for the.
And as well as the other, and the thing of it is also, we're not trying to cause havoc for anyone as far as the bus drivers and what have you, but when we call code enforcement, we expect some issues to be resolved. And these issues are ongoing issues that needs to be resolved. I know you have some constituents talking in your ear, and we're in the other ear. So, okay, we need to come together on that issue.
Yes, we are. And this is an issue this is a city issue. It's not just a district issue. I just wanted to make that clear.
What's the city issue?
The issue as it relates to the school buses. Yes.
I've gone throughout Kenner, and I see that issue nowhere but District 1.
You would be wrong, Ms. Davis. There are some.
Well, District 1 and District 2.
Well,
so
now,
you need to get yours resolved.
So what I'm saying is this is a city issue that we have to deal with.
It's not a city issue, it's an ordinance.
Can I finish, Ms.
It's an ordinance.
It is a city ordinance, not just a District 1 ordinance.
Okay, then we need to abide by the ordinance.
So we had conversations, just like you said, about the buses. I've had conversation with people who have buses. It has been established there are more than just in District 1. Some people weren't as knowledgeable about the law as you were, the people who had buses in this other area. I've spoken to Mr. Walters about this. We are in the process of letting them know that this isn't something that we have to address. We're not going to change the law for people parking on open lots or people doing stuff. That's not going to change. But I think it is fair to be able to give people a chance to find a spot to put their buses who are parking on open
Okay, but
spaces.
like I stated before, we've been dealing with this issue since 2007.
I understand that.
So now we're in 17, so how much more time are we looking to give these people to find somewhere to park?
Well, I can't speak from 2000 and whatever. I'm just saying right now that we're looking at this. We are talking to
Well,
those.
in the meantime, can the code continue to write up the violations that
I personally asked Mr. Walls, until we get a firm understanding of this, to give people an opportunity to not to write the violation, to let them know they're going to have to move it if they're parking on open lots. We're in the process, all of us, of looking at the legislation because there may be some changes. There are some concerns about the public buses, to make sure we're not addressing, when we address this, to make sure we are doing it legally and doesn't cross the
Okay,
lines of
read your
different things.
ordinance, it's already legal.
I understand, but we are looking at it to address, to ensure that when we deal with this, just like the boats, we had a, you know.
Well,
we
the
had some-
boat is a new issue. The off-street parking and regulations is not.
I'm saying we are looking into this. We are giving people an opportunity.
Okay, Mr. Farrell,
find-
we're gonna look into this. And
Yes, we are.
This is what?
This
This is October of
the-
2017?
Yes.
Okay, we'll look into it, okay? We're gonna continue looking into it, and we're going to come up with a resolution for this.
That is our goal, to come up
Thank
with a
you.
resolution. Thank you.
Council President, if I may interject, Ms. Davis, Council President Carroll did ask the administration to get the city attorney's office to look at this issue. It is a bit complicated, the way the legislation's drafted, but we are going to draft a
Yes,
change
and
to present to the council.
That's what I was trying to, let Ms. Davis know, that we are looking into this. We want to make sure that we look at all the particulars of it, and that's what we're going to do to make sure we get it right. So that's what we're doing. We're just not kicking it down the road. We will do that. Yes. Mr.
Council President, can I
Yes.
address Ms. Davis? Ms. Davis, I think at the Civic Association meeting, we discussed this 30th in Akron, and I asked you to give me some time to look into it. I have tried to call Mr. Jose Gonzalez, because, we did discuss the issues with the CarMax, and the guy from CarMax was the one bringing up Jose's name on everything. Jose is now the Director of Public Works for Jefferson Parish, am I not correct?
Yes.
I have been playing phone tag with him. I have not been able to speak to him yet. Yes, ma'am, I'm getting to that, because I was going to ask him about 30th and Akron. The canal banks at the edge of the roadway on the backside of the curb is the parish's responsibility. From there, all the way down through the canal is a parish responsibility. That is not a Kenner responsibility. We talked in the back of the council chambers tonight before this started, and you showed me the email from Mr. Raphael, and I told you I will address it this next coming week. We need to get through this hurricane. So again, please, give me some chances to get over there, do my investigation, and if I cannot get the parish to agree that it is their problem, then we will go and fix the problem for the parish. So just please, give me a chance to resolve the issue, please.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Dolores Windsor. Name and address.
Dolores Windsor, 1521 Mayfield Street. I'm the president of the Lancaster Manor Civics Association, and my concern is also about the buses parked all over our neighborhood. We don't want to, we pay taxes on our houses, we work hard for our homes. We don't want to look over our neighborhood, and everywhere we look, we see a big yellow school bus. It's not fair. It's just not fair. You're not going to see that in any other district. And I think it's wrong. It's been on the law since 1980. We have waited long enough. Something needs to be done. Simple as that. You all made the law. You need to enforce the law. And also, Councilman Carroll, can you please tell me when you planning on doing the constructions on the streets for us, please?
Well, I'm not going to do them personally.
Well,
but
when you're supposed to send someone out to do them.
someone has gone out, done an assessment to assess how much it's going to cost. It's been submitted into the process of the contracts, what it has to go through. That's where we are. We're going to do it, but it is going through the process. And I will let you know when the contracts are signed off on to start. But that is the 4 streets, Tifton, Marietta,
Dawson, and Garden.
Yes. So those are the 4 streets. We finally got a cost to how much they're going to cost, and now we have to put it in a process to get repaired, overlay. But that is a promise that will get done.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Miss Jackie Cochran Brown, name and address.
Good evening, Pastor Jacqueline Cockerham Brown and I'm here today.
Name and address.
Oh, I'm so sorry. 2610 Decatur Street, Unit A, Kenner, Louisiana.
Thank you.
70062. I have concerns about delays that Kenner has. I know Orleans has them, but I know we have them too, whether they're inadvertently or intentionally done. We have a problem with communication and terminology. The last time I came here, and I was hoping the airport people would still be here. But at 1:20 a.m. this morning, the trucks were moving, something was being driven, humming sounds. 1:20 a.m. this morning until 3:30 a.m. this morning is when I dealt with the construction at the airport. Now, you all told me that you promised that there would be no construction at night or 4 days in the morning. That didn't happen. So at this point, I am very disappointed, disgruntled, disgusted with what is going on. I don't recall the name of the gentleman who spoke about being in charge, but obviously someone else is in charge because activity is going on. And it's right at Decatur Street with that big cement-looking building structure that's rolling. The truck horns are blowing, and I'm awake. So I don't know who else is awake, but I'm awake. And I'm really trying to get this part, this section set up for you so that you can hear what I heard this morning. And unfortunately, I got a low battery since we've been here since from 5 to 8, and I hadn't charged it. But I want you to just be truthful with me because I'm just tired of hearing all of this. Somebody is not doing anything, and my next call is not going to be a good call. Somebody's going to be awakened because it's not fair to us. Just do what's right. That's all. Just be fair and be truthful, and someone come out and check on a regular basis. Get up. They're there every morning. This was this morning that I'm talking about, and it's not fair. It is not fair. Again, children have to go to school in the mornings. Adults, parents have to go to work or whatever is going on, but it's not fair. So, and hopefully it's not like the gentleman said in New Orleans, you know, making decisions, and they still doing things in spite of what Kenner says shouldn't be done. And I would appreciate your concern regarding this.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. It is our concern. Like we talked about the last meeting, I think Councilman.
Oh, Ms. Fauché was prepared to answer, I think.
Okay, Ms. Fauché, you have the floor.
Yes, the construction activity hotline for the North Terminal project is 504-444-6001. It accepts both voice calls and text messages. Charlie Prewitt is the CMAR construction manager for the project. He met with Ms. Brown after the last meeting. They exchanged contact information. So now Mr. Prewitt knows if Ms. Brown is calling, because it will not just show up a number, but it's his cell phone where this goes. So her actual name and ID will pop up. He confirmed that prior to the last meeting, he'd not received any contact. This number had not received any contact from her. But since he's not here tonight, I don't know if you actually called this morning and he didn't
you're
respond.
not, he should not have to receive anything from me.
Ma'am,
you said that, and I'm talking council, the city of Kenner said that there would be no activity at that time of morning. So I shouldn't have to call a hotline.
Ma'am, the hotline is the way that we determine, and we can, and there is no way for anyone to get out there if you don't call the hotline. Those are the people who will stop it. That's the person you call who will stop the noise. If you want the noise to stop, that's the person you need to call.
Obviously not, because I wanted it to stop when I was up here for the past 5 or 6 months.
Have you ever
It hasn't stopped yet?
Have you ever called the hotline to tell them
No,
there's
I
noise?
have not.
Okay, that's the way to make the noise stop.
So I want the hotline number from you again. tonight.
504.
No, I don't have anything to write it down.
Okay,
with.
Mr.
My
Prewitt
battery
said he
is
exchanged
low.
that with you last time, so if you actually have Mr.
Okay,
Prewitt's
but I want
number.
it from you because
Okay,
you're
okay,
saying
ladies, we're gonna,
but
Ms.
it's
Brown,
still
we're gonna
a
get that
problem.
number for
It
you.
shouldn't be like that.
We're gonna get the
You have
number.
to
We're
get up
gonna.
and call
it's a-
anybody.
all I'm saying is, it is against the law to do it, and if it happens, just like any law, people break it, and if they are breaking the law, it's just like running a stop sign. You're supposed to stop at a stop sign, but people constantly do it. So now that you've identified it again, we will give Mr. Charlie a call to let him know this shouldn't be happening. I mean,
Well, it
Councilman
shouldn't,
Segura
and-
went over that before. It should not be happening. So
It
we,
should be enforced, and it
It-
should be
it's
law.
most
because
definitely
it's the
enforced.
second time.
right.
I mean,
so
the second time
hopefully it
this
don't
month.
happen a third time, but we will give him a call tomorrow to let him know that the neighbors have complained about activity going on at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning that
Yes.
should not be going on.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Did you give it to him? Okay.
Miss Matthews? Leanne Matthews?
There's no other women there.
Nyron,
Iran, he's already spoken.
he's gone.
He left.
Mr. Jeffrey Ansing? He's gone also? Well, that would be it. I just have one more thing to say that.
He wants to talk, Mickey Caruso, the fire.
Oh, Mr. Jeruso, step up, name and address.
Mickey Jeruso, 123 Oaklawn Ridge Lane in St. Rose. I'm here tonight to thank y'all, the whole entire council, the mayor and his administration, for the purchase of this bunker gear that was desperately needed by the men and women of the Kenner Fire Department. I truly appreciate it. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Jeruso. And again, I would just like to remind everyone that here in the city of Kenner, we are fortunate enough to have the register of voters here in our city off of Minor Street, that there's an election going. Early voting has started. I believe it ends Sunday? Saturday?
Saturday to Saturday.
It starts this Saturday.
That started last Saturday.
And it
Goes to
ends.
this Saturday.
So it started last Saturday. It ends this Saturday. So anyone who lives in that area for the election, please come to use our building. It is a nice building. You can beat the crowd and come there. So Saturday, I think the hours are from 8:30 to 6. If not, you can give our office a call tomorrow to find out for sure. Any one of our offices or call the Register of Board of Office to get the actual hours.
And then the election's October 14th.
And thank you, Council. And the election is actually October the 14th. So I think that's it.